microphones, please. Locate a copy of the assessor's contract. So we got the assessor's contract, and the question we had on that was, why did that go up? And according to the contract, page 2, the assessments are delineated in item number 6. I should say, for anybody tuning in, this is Monday, September 13th, 6 o'clock. This is a budget work session of the Now Then City Council. All members present, plus Lori Strike and Lori Yeager. Page 2 of the assessor's contract, item 6 is the delineation of the charges for residential and commercial. And item 7 says the same procedure and rates will be followed in the frequency and computation of payments for assessment services in subsequent years. So we should see approximately the same number if they're doing a quarter of the city population each year. So we should be seeing that stay the same. So that answered that question. Anything else on that? Anybody want to bring up? All right. Can the accounting numbers be lowered? We talked about, again, on page 9, professional services accounting had gone up. Right now, we're paying about $1,200 a month, and there was look to increase that by $1,100. The question we had last time is, do we still need $1,200 a month going forward in this year? That's $14,400. So that was a question as to the increase isn't necessary, but do we still need $14,400 going forward, or can that number go down?
And Mr. Mayor, maybe I can address that. So we looked at what we're spending as far as time-wise, and so my rates aren't going up, it's just the amount of time that I'm spending on different projects for the city of Now Then. And so I'm projecting that in 2021, the charges will be about $16,500, and that's based on work through August 31st. You know, the end of the year, I don't have as much activity, but up until now, we've had quite a bit of activity with the budgets and the bonding and the capital projects and so forth. So Lori's actually done very good. She handles all the bank recs. Prior years, I was helping with that. Now I don't have to help so much with that. We do quarterly reports, and I handle that at this time. I'm not sure at what point I can turn that over to Lori, but right now I'm not real comfortable with turning over that much for her to do. She's handling the investments, reconciliation, she's doing all the in-house accounting work, all of the accounts payable, accounts receivable, you know, posting all of the activity on a daily basis. So right now I'm doing quarterly reports, doing your annual financial statements for an auditor to review, and then also your budgets and any capital improvement, and then if you have bonding come up, I also assist with that. So it's based on the amount of activity. You know, we did reduce it from an increase back down to the 14.4, but at this time I don't see where we could reduce it further without going over budget in the future. So that's where that falls in.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
To Lori Yeager and to Lori Strike, is there anything of those duties that your staff is able to take from you, Lori Strike, so that you could assume more of that financial piece to get yourself to a point where you're self-sufficient?
If we had our part-timer, if she was full-time, I would delegate that to her. But she would like to stay part-time. And I have the other full-timer very busy with many other duties, so I can't add more to her plate right now. So at this time, I would say no.
And as a follow-up then, so part-time, is she 32 hours a week, or what is she currently working?
She's working Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10-hour days. And her primary role is the planning and zoning, learning that and taking care of all of the applications that come in for zoning and variances and keeping those straight, getting caught up on billing for everything that has not been happening over the years. So she's on top of it.
So then another follow-up, is she then also going to be staff support at the night of the meeting too?
Which meeting?
The P and Z meeting?
She does all the P&Z meetings, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
I know she had been there, I just wasn't sure. Okay.
So 14.4, we're moving forward with that?
That's what I'm recommending.
So I would, again, we'll go through and see if we need to adjust or not, and that would be one
Yeah.
I would revisit if we needed to, so.
Okay.
Third bullet point there, can the auditor's numbers be lowered?
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm not recommending that at this time because we're doing an RFP. I can tell you that the audit amount for a city is probably more than the 8,000 or 9,000 that you're paying right now. So that's why we increased it a little bit. I'm anticipating it'll come in about $9,000 or $10,000 a year, hopefully less than $10,000 a year for an audit. And I believe right now Mike was at 8,900. Gotta look it up.
And so our decision at this year to go RFP and not go with Mike another year, what's the logic there?
Mr. Popal does a great job. He does not understand our financial system. So it's been very difficult for him to, he's not computer savvy, so everything is handwritten, which is making it difficult too. But it doesn't mean we're not going to go with Mr. Popal.
Right.
We're going to give him every opportunity to put an RFP in, and he knows that as well. But it's a good opportunity to go out and see what's out there too.
Okay. All right,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
to Ms. Strike, where are we in this RFP process? What,
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll probably address that. I'm just started completing the RFP, and so what we'll do is we'll post it to the League of Minnesota Cities website, and then after we get the applications in, we'll give them one application, each copy to you guys to review, and we'll have like a check mark off, does the auditors, do they fit this, do they fit that, do they, so you can go through and look at it analytically, and usually it's about a 3 to 5 year contract. You don't usually go any longer than that with auditors without doing an RFP. So, 3 to 5 years, and then hopefully you'll get some good RFPs and some good bids.
so, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember
And
Rainville.
I guess a little bit more clarification. When do we think that RFP is going to go out?
So
You're just
it'll go
starting
out
it?
in the beginning of October, and we'll have a deadline at the end of October, and we'll hire someone in November after your meeting in November. So we'll set up some deadlines, and so you'll have basically a month to review the RFPs that come in, or the proposals that come in. And then we'll accept a bid in November, and then they'll start in December. Very preliminary start in December and then they actually do the audit after year end. Yeah.
Right. Is it possible for council to see the RFP
Oh, yeah,
at
we'll
the
send
same
it to you
time it goes
before.
out?
Yep.
Right.
Before it goes out, we'll send it to you.
Okay.
Let us know that everything's in there. I'm using kind of a blank one so that one that we all use all the time.
All right.
It's pretty common.
All right. Thank you.
All right, page 9, legal civil attorney. Question was, why did this go up? Based on two things, rate increase and usage, we reduced the number with the expectation of less use. The question I had was the prosecuting attorney. We're up at 37.5, our projected for this year is 25.5.
Yeah,
So
but
we're
if
up
you look at,
$12,000 on prosecution.
right, but if you look at 20 and 19, it's been at 35, generally speaking. I'm not sure why it's down so low in 21. It could be that I'm missing an invoice, that maybe they've only invoiced through June or something, and I haven't seen July and August. I don't know the details to that. So that projected number, you know, I'm fairly confident in it, but I'd have to look at the details to find out exactly where it's at. But, you know, you look at the other actuals, and they, you know, they're at 36 anyway. I dropped it down from 42 to 37.5, so,
And we have not received an invoice from them for several months.
okay, so it is, my projection's probably low.
All right. Planning and zoning commission member salary paid once a year, where is this located in the budget? This was getting charged to the council budgets, now separated to planning and zoning commission. So we've seen that on page 9 here. Question we had on engineering, because we were saying, what do they do? Because typically engineering get charged to the road projects.
Right.
This is the MS4 permitting, grant applications, drainage concerns, review of county plans. So we're anticipating 41,000 there.
It seems like that's been, you know, 42, 47, I'm projecting 49. So, yeah, it depends on what activities are going on. But obviously we've been spending more than we've been budgeting. We've been budgeting 35,000 and spending in the 40s.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
To Ms. Strike, just as a, so we are assured that when the invoices come in, they are getting billed to the road projects and,
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And we actually look at that at year end to make sure, because you
Okay.
really want as much,
yeah,
you know, to go with the project as the correct
So-
project.
So in this case, where the numbers are in the 40s, is this this is, you know, everything we're giving to them? We might be reimbursed, there might be revenue streams coming in with this, but this is what we're paying the engineer, or is this above and beyond? How are we separating what the road project covers versus what the levy itself covers?
So the road projects, when the engineer submits his invoice, he'll actually say exactly what it's for. And he says the road project on there, and then the charge for that is associated with that road project, and then we fund it to the capital project. If it's not a road project in particular, then it goes to the general fund. So things, any kind of maintenance or seal coating, I don't know if the engineer works on that kind of stuff or not, but any of that general operating type maintenance, that would go into the general fund as far as maintenance goes.
All right,
so Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Rainville.
Okay, then I guess so I'm looking at this year's budget, so we've got that on page 9. We have the professional services, $40,900.
That's correct.
And on page 20, expenditures, repair, maintenance, contractual, we've got 10,000. So where is the money that Shane is billing us for the work on the roads? Where does that coming in or going
So
out
that's-
for an expenditure is?
So that is actually included in the $914,000.
Improvements.
Yep,
Okay,
because it's
all right.
part of the capital costs.
Okay.
So anything to do with your road projects and any professional service, we capitalize.
All right, thank
So
you.
that other repair and maintenance, that $10,000, that's just
Okay.
a few miscellaneous items
Okay,
that
all right.
got coded there, so,
I know there's more than $10,000 contractually there.
yes, yes,
So I just, thank you.
yep.
All right. Number 5, page 9 again, the sheriff's contract, we moved that up to the full $373,985.
And Mr. Mayor, is that really what, I mean, are they planning on billing you for the full year?
We haven't decided that yet.
They haven't decided, okay.
Well, we haven't decided what we're asking them
Oh,
for.
I see.
We-
I thought they were
what-
generally going
what-
out and telling all the cities what they were gonna do.
No, what we did last time when you were gone is we took a look at the numbers, and you can see we were almost 390,000 budgeted over actual, projected.
Sure,
So we looked at that and said, why are we basing our increases on a budget that's, almost $400,000 fat? And just building on that budget, when we're going back and saying, what do we think our true actual will be?
okay,
And base our increases on that. And so we looked at, is if we did that, then and we included the entirety of the sheriff's contract, that still left us about 10% over our projected actual to meet last year's budget number. Our goal coming in here was to have the numbers match last year, so we were at a 0% increase.
sure.
So if we had room, we wanted to put the whole of the sheriff in there. If we
Sure.
needed to start a quarter in or half in, but we wanted to see if we could fit it in, because what we don't fit in this year, we're gonna have to add to next year when we
Yep.
have the higher levy
Yep, very, very correct, yep,
impact.
okay.
So we thought if we could fit it in, so the idea was take last year's, the 2021 budget, reduce it by the 114,000, and then see what we have left in there, approximately based on the projected, about little over 10%.
Okay,
And that's our goal for tonight, to come in
Okay.
at a 0 increase over 2021.
okay, so currently I have in there a $47,000 increase, so.
Yeah, we'll work to that.
Okay,
If the storm doesn't take us away.
okay,
All right, so, right now, we've put that in there, again, that's another potential topic to revisit depending on the numbers, but. Okay, fire department, item 6 on page 10. There was a question, so I'm assuming you got this from Lori, and you wondered where the 282 was coming from, or somebody was?
right.
The 282 is based on the numbers that St. Francis sent down with their,
Okay,
so their projection for the year was not the 276, but the 282. They had,
oh, okay,
$5,500 more, so.
okay. And, we did meet with Dave and we spoke with him about this, and he said that it was okay, so I don't know where this is coming from, but.
Yeah, so that's the numbers that we had gotten from St. Francis, so
Yeah.
if Dave has stepped back into 276, I'm okay with it.
Yep, that's what he said, so. And if you look at the actuals, even the projections for this year, what page is that on? It's on page 10, so we're projecting like half of what we budgeted. And that's through year end, so
Yeah,
I feel pretty strongly that the budget was a little high last year.
so that's probably one that if we're coming in at half, we need to understand, even at the 230 or 130,000 increase, might be another one where there's some room.
Right.
You're 90,000 under on salaries and benefits, right?
It's mostly salary and benefits that we reduced.
And 40 grand under on maintenance and contract, so
Yeah, right.
there's 130.
Yep.
All right. Public Works. So salaries and benefits, is this accurate? The answer is yes, and so the question on is it accurate? I think the question we had was with Public Works, the salaries and benefits projected are so low because we've had somebody off.
That's correct. That's
And
correct.
so if they were here full-time, would that number projection instead of 143 be 177? Lori, do we know?
Where are you? Oh, the projection would be much higher, yes.
Page
Yeah,
10
but
of
the
salaries
question
and
was, is it
Yes.
30,000 higher or?
I don't know, because
We
you know.
didn't lower the rate of the projection because somebody was out, because we knew that they were going to be back. So I don't think we changed that. We kept it at the correct, the true dollar amount.
Nope, I used what we've actually paid out. So the projected column here, the 143 is less than normal.
Okay.
So previous years it was 168, 155, and we have it at 177 for 2022. I base it on what we're paying them, plus, and I have a formula that also includes all their Social Security, their Medicare, their health benefit, everything. And so that number matches my spreadsheet for them working full-time, basically. And then there's some part-time people in there too.
The projection does?
Not the projection. The projection's based on actual. So the projection is based on what we've actually paid through August 31st, basically divided by 8 times 12. So you've had some people out, and that's why you're lower this year than
Yeah.
previous years.
And so our budget for 2021 was 172.8,
Yes.
and we've increased it to 177,350.
Yeah, and that's based on actual salaries that you pay your full-time individuals and then also your seasonal.
Okay.
It sounds like you're wet.
Put your windows down.
All right, materials and supplies seemed high was the comment, and we have a worksheet here.
Just like the detailed page. And I think where the biggest increase here was if you look under repair and maintenance supplies, street maintenance. You can see there in 2020, we spent 36,000, 21, I'm projecting 31,000, even though we only budget $2,100. And so I increased it to $25,000 because you tend to spend more on your supplies for your street maintenance. And then I think it decreased somewhere else. So you had an offset that offset this.
Well, if we look at motor fuels, we were 21,
Oh,
6, 15, 13, 5 projected for this year, and we're at 20 for motor fuels.
Right, but in 2019, you were at 21 and your gas prices are up to $3 a gallon.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I think you're good at the 20. I mean, your gas was cheaper in 2020 than it was in where it's going in 21 and 22, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So,
Shop materials are double what we projected, double 2020, slightly higher than 2019.
yeah.
And so what is the repair and maintenance street? We have,
It must be supplies that they buy for the street maintenance type activity.
Are we putting the salt and sand in that category?
I didn't think so. Maybe that's what it is, the salt and sand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That makes sense, right?
yeah. Because we do have another budget, and that's just strictly for gravel,
Yep.
so. But if you look on page 10 in the budget, you'll see that the materials and supplies went up by 22, but your maintenance and contractual services went down by 25. So there was kind of a shifting of where the budget is. Yeah, you're still budgeting the same amount, basically. It's $1,000 difference, but it just shifted from one area to another, just so the budget reflects what you're actually spending.
Yeah, but we're down 30 from last time.
You're down in the,
So from the last budget meeting to this one, we were at 439,000, now we're at 409.
oh,
so-
right, I probably adjusted it.
Yeah, it looks like it's adjusted, so
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
Maintenance and contract came down 25 and the other one,
went up 22, or stayed at 22, yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville.
question on the strike. Are we, a couple years back, we did a pre-buy for fuel. Have we looked at that again? Are they even offering that? I know we saved a considerable amount of money.
I don't know anything about that,
Okay.
but I
I'm
can
trying to
check
think of
into
what
it.
year it was.
Mary,
Maybe-
can you pre-buy gasoline? And I thought pre-buy was just for like propane or fuel for your home.
No,
not-
there was, I don't remember who the supplier was, but we pre-bought.
Pre-buy diesel.
Was it diesel?
Oh.
Okay.
And diesel's up higher than,
Yeah.
than unleaded and leaded, so.
Yeah, so they
It's
have
expensive.
the big tanks we have back in the maintenance yard. And so we buy bulk. And so when we buy bulk, then you can pre-buy in the off-season. And then we can fill those tanks and
Where are your tanks?
in the maintenance yard. Right
It's
for
still
the
high,
salt
even if you
shed.
buy it right now. It's still much higher than it was a year ago.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah, so I mean, we're still gonna pay a lot
But
more
the
than we're
question
paying
is,
here.
are we still taking advantage of pre-buy, even though it's higher now, it's, the pre-buy and the bulk purchase can still have some money savings there, so.
I will ask.
Thank you.
So the projected, going back to the public works and maintenance and contract where we came down $30,000, the projected 2021 came down $50,000.
From the budget, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying, from last time when we had this conversation, our
Oh.
projected was
Higher,
159
right,
on maintenance and contract, and now it's 1087.
right, because I probably have more actual invoices now, and so I'm seeing a different,
materials and
projection.
supplies went up
Yeah,
20-some thousand too.
so maybe that's where it is, that the,
Yeah, but I'm just saying that went up 20,000 projected because we have more numbers in.
Yeah.
Maintenance and contract, I don't know what's in there, but it went down 50,000.
right.
And the budgeted projection came down 30,000, so. Did we roll something over into supplies, materials and supplies from maintenance and contract?
It's very possible. It's all about the coding. You know, when the original bills come in, it depends on where it gets coded. And so I don't actually go through and analyze the coding at this point. I usually do it at year end to make sure that everything's coded appropriately. Right now, I'm just taking the figures and extrapolating them out as a projection.
Yep.
And that's why we talked about last time, when we used to have our proposed budgets, we would see those line items so that, because right now that makes it tough to, this one's up 20 and we don't know why, and this one's down 50 and we're not sure why. And yet the materials and supplies stayed at 84.4 and the maintenance and contract services came down
25.
30,000, but we have a $50,000 plan here. So I just, it's hard to, because the projection is 25% increase from
So my-
projected to the proposed budget is 25% increase.
Right, and a lot of that is in salaries. If you notice that the salaries are only at 150 or 145, 35,000 of that will be in salaries. So you're going to be, your projected actual this year is less because I think you have less staff. And so you're not doing the maintenance that normally gets done. And so the maintenance and services are down, and the salaries are down in the projected column, but that does not flow through to the 22 budget because they'll be staffed back on full-time. And you'll be doing your maintenance again. So it does vary from year to year. You can see from 2019, it was 350. In 2020, it was basically 410. So it varies by $60,000. So I don't recommend reducing it because what if it goes up $60,000 in 22?
Well, I think that's maybe what I get uneasy with, because we used to go through the line item and say, this is why we think this year is gonna be much higher, whether it's diesel fuel or, this is what we didn't do this year, not only because we were down in salary because somebody
Right,
wasn't
right,
here,
right.
but maybe certain activities that are cost effective.
Well, and you can
But somewhere
certainly,
in here, we have crack sealing, and we have, we have some of the other, the salt, the winter stuff, the sand and salt, the crack
Yep.
sealing, the gravel.
yeah,
And so we don't know where that fits in here, and are we anticipating more crack seal this year compared to a previous year?
right,
Are we anticipating more gravel this year?
right,
So those are the things, it's hard because
Right.
when you see a $50,000 swing without understanding what makes up those numbers, it's
Right.
hard to say, yeah, that's okay.
generally speaking, your street maintenance is pretty normal, or it averages out over the years. It doesn't have large swings like this. So normally, it goes up because costs are going up, or like you say, more activity. But if you want to do an analysis of the detailed in each line item, I think we'd have to start this in June. Start it much earlier so that you would have the time to go through all of that information and look at it.
Which is what we used to do, yeah.
Okay. Well, that is totally up to you, but for this year, I don't think that the time that is left, we have to, and you can still work on your budget. It's just that you have to have a preliminary levy set by September 29th, basically, because we got to send it in on September 30th to the county.
Yep.
And so, you can continue to work on your budget, and you can always reduce your levy, but you cannot increase it. And so, having an exact budget at this point in time does not matter. You can work on it in October, you can work on it in November, you can work on it in December. So if you want the detail and you want to work on your budgets, we'll be happy to provide you with anything that you need. But we do have to do a levy by a certain date. And we don't have to have a budget done. So I just want you to be aware of that there's no requirement for you to have an adopted budget at this time. But it helps when you have a budget to get to your appropriate levy.
Yes, you would like to be pretty close in the budget, so you're
Yes, it would help.
right on the levies.
So you know where your levy is, so. And we just had a conversation with S&P regarding your fund balances and about your budgets and so forth. And they had mentioned, the only thing that they can see is that if you continue to not make the mark as far as your fund balance in your general fund, then that could possibly trigger a decrease in your rating, or if there's any other kind of budgetary issues that come up. So they really pay attention to what you're doing as far as your budget, and if you're willing to increase your levy, or if you're using your fund balance on an annual basis. But they want to see a healthy fund balance in the general fund. So just to let you know that. And I think you've got a copy of the report too, so.
Yep.
It was made pretty clear in there. So.
All right. Page 10 still, park areas. And again, we have an attachment. So my question is on park, from projected to budgeted, it's a 42% increase.
From the 26.8 to the 38, is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, because our budget didn't change over last year. It went down actually by $70. It's based on your history, and you spent $32,000 in 2019. Now, I don't know if that was an anomaly or what the deal was. Obviously, your supplies there, you could probably drop that by $5,000. You don't tend to spend that much money in your material and supplies. And maybe even your maintenance and contract services, that's at 4,300. You could drop that. I just didn't change it because I didn't know if there was something in there that you knew that you wanted to do in 2022.
Well, so there again, one of the questions, one of the reasons for the action items was because we don't have that. I've got the budgets going back to 10 years.
Right.
And so I can see line by line, and you can see the years there's an anomaly, and generally what we would have is we'd have our expenditures or our planned expenditures saying, that's the year we put in a new playground, or that's the year we did something unusual.
So you would have staff come to the meeting and talk to you about what was going on, or you
Yeah.
would actually do an analysis of the,
What we would do is we take a trend, and so like in this case, on the park areas, where we're at 1,800, 1,500, 1,500, we jump to 43. The two questions we would have is, it's been pretty consistent under 2,000, why did we increase it 100+%? What are we anticipating the maintenance and contractual to be? So if there is something that's more significant, either a flyer, if it's everything's going along relatively the same from year to year with slight increases, and you see 3 years ago that it was double or triple that, generally we'd say, you know, what was that
I get
that
it,
we
and
did?
that's exactly what I do, but, you know, these are such small dollar amounts, but so, you know, you could go through and eliminate all of these things where you don't ever spend any money, like small tools and minor equipment, $200. Utility refuse disposal, $500. You have,
But the 12,000 is, there's part-time earnings in 2020 and 21 that was budgeted but never spent. And it's budgeted again in 22. And the reason that 19 was so high is that we spent 12.9 in part-time earnings. So if you look at 19, it's 32,000. If you look at 21, it's 26.8. If you add the 12,000 for the part-time earnings, you're up to 38. So that's the 12,000. So the question is, are we going to have someone supporting that on a part-time basis next year? If the answer is yes, leave
then
it
you
in
should
there.
leave it, yeah.
If the answer is no, you can pull 12,000 out, but I think we
Well,
said,
but again, projected, the 2021 projected is 16,162.
No, that's
full-time.
full-time, that's full-time.
so there's a part-time person that's supposed to be working that was never hired.
Right.
And it looks like we have a plan for that in 2022. So if we don't have a plan for that, then pull it out. If we have a plan for it, leave it in.
Well, the question is then, if the projected is 16,162, when we budgeted 5,900, and we budget 6,300 for full-time, are we actually paying full-time, or is that, where are the part-time salaries from this year on the projected? I assume that was in the full-time earnings, that was lump sum.
It's all depends on where it gets coded when they're getting paid, so.
So we
you
don't
know,
have
these
any
are-
record of the part-time
These
part?
are full-time staff working between Public Works and Parks, is where it is.
That would be Joe and Eric in
Yeah.
the full-time slot.
And
Okay,
then
The
so-
part-timers would be the seasonal employees.
And where is that on our projected?
they maybe got charged to Public Works inadvertently or something, let's look here.
16,000, 17,000.
So in Public Works for part-time, projected is $26,000. So that's probably what's happening, is that when they're coding their time, it's all going into Public Works, it's not going into Parks. So the Public Works part-time is higher than normal. We only budget 18,600, but we're spending 26,000. But I think that's partly because Joe is out, and you have a different part-time person in here.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
One of the things I'm starting to look into is for the part-time, for the parks, is what it would cost to hire a company to come out and take care of our mowing of our excuse me, of our properties. It seems like every year we have difficulty finding a part-timer. I don't see that getting any better. This year, we hired at a lower hourly number of hours than we advertised for, and then that even got reduced. So, I don't know how dollars will play out, but I think for the ease of staff, it might be better to be able to say, I have ABC Landscaping, they have this bid, this is what they're going to charge, and we just need to set up a detail of what they're supposed to do, how often they're supposed to do it, what they're gonna charge, and that be observed that it's being done.
I did do that this summer before we hired part-time, and they were between $800 and $1,000 a week. So I thought it would be better to look into part-time seasonal.
I'm gonna still investigate it. I just think that would be it just takes it all out of the hands of
Are you talking about just mowing, Mary?
mowing and weed whipping and, those things that a landscape company does.
Because we can't, because Joe is gone, but we couldn't keep up this year. Things weren't kept up well.
No, they were
Well,
not. We
yeah, but
had
that-
weeds this high. and-
With the roads and stuff, I mean, we had, a heck of a growing season with the heat and stuff. We didn't have a lot of growing. We had a lot of weeds, but.
Yeah, but
But
it
Joe would
wasn't-
normally be doing that stuff anyway.
Yeah, but this year wasn't kept up well.
Right.
This park over here where they had ball, sometimes it was just a weed field. They could hardly play soccer there. Because I'd go up every week, and that wasn't taken care of well at all. So we need to figure out a better system.
yeah,
When Joe coming back maybe is the answer, I don't know.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
generally, Joe would be on the roads
Yeah.
rather than the parks, but,
It's just,
Councilman Rainville.
yeah, just, as I was gonna say, is that Joe doesn't do the weed whipping and the mowing. That is.
Hired.
The part-time people that we hire. And again, over the years, we have found that it's difficult to hire. And it may be a little bit more, but is the end product better? And we have more control over what is being done and how often it's being done. And the appearance of our parks and grounds are
Well,
satisfactory.
I suppose it's all about the money, like she said,
Yeah.
when she looked at it, it just was so much more, and that's something we always are being careful about, is what we
right.
spend. That's very important.
So back to this, the challenge I have is, the reason we had 18 action items last time is because there were questions that we were looking for answers for. And something like this, where if we have somewhere approximately $12,000 that isn't in this account, well, the numbers, the projected that we got for today's meeting show 26.8 at a budget of 38, so that's a 29.6% increase. And I'm looking at a missing number on part-time, a significantly, we're $10,000 over on full-time. So if that's a coding issue, or what's happening that we got, that's why I thought we were combining the part-time and full-time, because if we got full-timers and one person isn't here this summer and the other person was taking those responsibilities out on the road, who's the full-timer that's putting in $16,000 worth of park maintenance this year? So something isn't right about these numbers, and that's why, so at a 30% increase, 29.6% increase, I'm looking at numbers, supplies, operating supplies that are typically down 23, 4, 16, and we got it at 45, and then 14, and we got it at 27. We got nothing, and we put in 1,000. We have 782, and we put in 2,500. And so you were saying before, in the grand scheme of things, our budgets are all pretty small anyway, and these seem like small numbers, but we've got $12,000 difference
Right,
there
right.
between projected and budgeting.
Right.
And $2,000 to $3,000 here, there, and a few other places adds up to tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
But we can't make that decision because we don't know if there's a missing number.
Yeah,
And the number that's there seems $10,000 high.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I mean, we could do an analysis on these numbers and try to, and determine what they're, where they're coming from exactly. Normally during an audit process, that's what your finance person would do. They would go back and they would look at any anomalies that is happening. And so these numbers would be reflected correctly, historically. Now, you've got an auditor now that does not look at the details that much. They, are just trying to get the financials out. And so, and not trying to move things around so that they're reflected correctly. And so you may have things that are miscoded back many years, not just this year or previous years. It takes a lot of time to go in and make sure that, so in other words, once people are set up, they should be set up appropriately so that when they do their work, they're being charged to the right time. And if they're not set up appropriately, then they're not being charged to the right coding. And that's on the personal side. And then the other side is as the bills come in, there's a decision process made where the person that's coding the bills has to say, well, what was this for? Is it for street maintenance, or is it for a park, or is it, so every bill that comes in, there's a decision that's made there. And that gets reflected in the coding too. And so it's a lot more than just looking at the line item and going, well, okay, well, what's in here? You have to do a lot of processing and pulling invoices and looking at it in detail. And I think it's a learning process for Lori, for her to start, now she's recognizing where things are needed to be coded and how they should be coded, where you had a little bit of a break there where you didn't have anybody in, and, staff was trying to code or do their jobs as well as they could. So
is this easier now that we have Banyan?
Yes.
So the coding part should be fairly
It should be
straightforward.
good now, yes, going forward.
But
there was too many people involved before as far as the coding, because Mike was instructing where to code
And
Ellen-
accounts for being
and I understand
created.
that,
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons we justified bringing in Banyan 2 years ago. Was
Right.
to end all that.
Right.
Because CTAS was Mike's
baby, yeah.
baby,
Yeah.
and staff was quite willing, previous staff was quite willing to let him
do that.
direct.
Yes.
And then I think that's probably why, we used to do this, we'd start in June, and we'd have the interim expenses to date, and we'd have then the budgets, because then we'd look at it and we'd say, this does look to be an anomaly. I mean, right now, you're saying that might be done at the end of the year, might be done by a financial person,
Right,
but we're trying to figure out a budget here with
right,
with gaps and lack of explanation as to why we would need that. And so the reason this came up, item 7 here, materials and supplies seem high. Why? Why are these, 100% increase over actual, or even, a significant increase over previous budgets?
right.
So that was, part of the intent over the last 2 weeks was to dig into that and say, because one of the things we tasked Lori with was, because we don't see those numbers, and she sees something that's coming up, or she sees something that's abnormally low, that's where she can come and say, the reason this year it's so low because, or the reason I'm anticipating next year because. Because otherwise, we don't have the information we're just looking at line items here that
Right. And
have no context for us.
Right, and that's what you did in previous years, correct? You looked at the line items and made a determination based on the line items.
Yeah, we had
The
all
detailed line items, yeah.
detail that we saw the whole category.
Right, but you didn't see the invoices or anything like that, you're just looking at.
Actually, she would have the invoices with her if there was a question as to what got weird here.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm not going.
Let's,
No, I'm just saying that
cut it up a little bit here.
because she wanted to have an answer, and she said, I know there was something there, and she, for her sake, she just pulled out, that's right. In January we did this, and we forgot about
Yeah,
it.
we gotta run higher than that.
But,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Greenberg.
Lori Yeager, is it possible, just theoretically, to print out a grand sheet where all the information where this is pulling from, every itemized detail was evident? Not that I want it.
Right,
I just
right.
want to see if it's possible.
Certainly, it's called an audit, and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, and, you know, we can.
Mr. Mayor, is that
Councilmember Greenberg.
is that what you're looking for? Something that detailed?
Well, I can say 1, 2, we probably had 10, 12 pages previously, but yeah.
So
I mean,
this
it's
report
not- it's not-
is
It's
literally
hundreds.
hundreds of pages long.
Hundreds of
And that's why I've been looking for a report that simplifies it a little bit more than that. The reports that I sent with, for the detail, you want more than that, it sounds like. Like, you want to know what is in the operating supply, you want to know exactly what items, if it's brake fluid and motor fuel.
No, you know, I'm gonna, I probably, you know, we wouldn't get down that far, but things like gravel and I don't know where gravel shows up on here, where crack seal shows up on here.
Gravel's in Public Works. Yep.
And, you know, so in that, but,
Gravel's in your maintenance in Public Works. That's where it's.
so where would crack seal be?
That would be in your maintenance also. So your maintenance, your gravel is, the budget is 67,000, and it says gravel, rock, etc. And you've spent in 2019, 45,000, 2020, 73,000. 2021, I'm projecting 45,000, and your budget is 67. So I think what happens is you buy a lot of gravel one year, and you don't buy it next year, and then you buy a lot of gravel, and then you don't buy as much gravel. So it fluctuates between 73,000 and 45,000. So
Does the price of gravel change?
I don't know
Oh.
if it does,
Okay.
frankly. That's,
So where, I kind of got lost there, where were you seeing that?
I have the detail when I do the, when
I
I do
mean,
the
on the line item that we
projections.
got, so say page 10 is Public Works.
It's under maintenance. It's all included in that one number under maintenance. So it's included in your 145,500. And that includes your seal coating, any rental that you might have. And so you just look back and you can see what you've spent historically, 125,000, 130,000,
See, and this is where,
110.
and I understand we're in September, so
Yeah.
we can only do so much at this point,
Yeah.
but for perspective, those would be major items, the crack seal, the graveling. We'd have a gravel plan, we'd know what was going on, we'd know the dust coating, dust control. But that's where we would have the debate. You know, right now, we've got the simple, half the city one year, and the other half city the other year.
Sure.
And the discussion we had at one point was, is that really necessary? Because you're probably crack sealing roads that don't need it. And you're probably skipping some on the other half that need it.
Okay.
And so the intention was, maybe we could do a realistic, what needs to be done. In some years, we may have to do a lot of crack seal, and some years, maybe not much at all.
Is this
So when
something
you
that?
just tell a company, go out and crack seal everything north of Viking,
Sure.
they're crack sealing whether it needs it or not.
Yeah. Is that a Shane, is that what Shane tells you? Is that what, his?
No.
His
that
advice
was-
is?
That was the council.
Oh.
Shane's never been in any of these meetings.
Oh, okay, okay.
But that's where the council, we've had people from the town board that used to be on our council.
Okay,
And that was
okay.
the discussion that's been had for a long time,
Sure,
that you're putting crack seal in a lot of places you don't need it.
sure.
And there's places that should have it, but it's in the off year, so they're not getting it. So the
Yeah.
question would have been, we would go out early in the year and say
Mm-hmm.
which roads need it, and then bid that out.
Yeah,
And instead, we've just gotten into this half the city, half the city.
sure.
And we may be wasting money and not utilizing it. And so, when we don't have that, again, I'm not looking for hundreds of pages, but those major categories, how much gravel are we putting down,
Right.
and how much is going in
So it's
ditches?
define major, because we spent 0 time on the fire management,
Yeah.
on professional services, which was 125,000, and we're debating this one like crazy at 145.
Oh,
Oh, and
So,
I don't know that I would
so,
let the fire go either, but we haven't had that one in our budgets previously.
it's been on there the last 3 years for professional services and So it's the same.
Well, yeah, that's the fee we were paying.
So if you want that level of detail, and I don't, we need to define where you think you want it, because there's some $120,000 ones that we skip over, and we get to $140,000 one, and I want to know exactly what's going on with this one. So that makes it difficult to know, right?
Well, I think in the fire one, we should know that too. If it's 125,000, what are the major categories there? The contract at 75,000 is the biggest chunk of that.
I guess if it's in line with the projection and the fire chief has said this is what we think we need, and we believe it's reasonable, we move on.
Well, and as I say, that short of that, unless staff is doing that evaluation, like on the roads, we don't know. If we just have fallen into a pattern of just do half the city, is that a reasonable thing in a budget our size? Because it's $30-some thousand a year to do that.
Right, and Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just to let you know, I did drop your repair and maintenance contractual, which would be your seal coating or crack, by $30,000 this year, because you don't spend more than $60,000 a year. So you had a budget of $90,000 and I dropped it down to $60,000. So it was reduced this year based on your history, what you're spending. And it had been at $90,000. And so this year it's reduced by $30,000. I did not change the gravel because you have peaked and spent $75,000 on gravel in a given year. And your budget is only $67,000. So based on that, I thought, well, we should leave it where it's at because I don't know how much gravel you're gonna buy. So I do an analysis when I do this. I don't go into in depth as far as, I don't know the seal coating or the roads that you're gonna do, but I do look at history. And I also look back even further than 18. I just don't have that open on my spreadsheet, but I go back into earlier years. I think I even have 17 on here. And no, I have 18 and 17 on here. So if I even go back there was one year, 2018, where you spent $90,000 on repair and maintenance of streets. Now, I don't know if that was excessive or not, but you did spend it. And then in 17 and 18, you spent $67,000 on gravel and rock.
See, and part of that, and that's, the history, and I don't expect you to know that. All you can do is look back. I've got, this one goes back to
Well, and that
2010.
we look at numbers and we try to project them forward. And so I'm trying to reassure you, I am looking at your numbers. I am trying to project them forward. I don't want you to go over budget in a given year. So I'm trying to leave you some wherewithal and still have a reasonable tax levy.
Right, and what I'm saying is, it's, some of that you won't know, that $90,000, I would speculate that that's gonna be an Ebony and Garnett year. So we did major patching, we did 3 major patches over the years on Ebony and Garnett, and we spent over $80,000 doing those patches.
And that was
So-
in 2018.
And I would anticipate if those are the flyers that you're seeing in there, and now that Ebony Garnett is being paved this week, we shouldn't see those types of flyers. Or
Right.
this is again where Joe would be involved, saying, yeah, we don't have it on Ebony Garnett, but here's another one that's going to blow up on us.
Sure.
And so therefore we do
Yeah.
need that. And that's why it's a whole staff thing. You can look at numbers and look at peaks and valleys,
Right.
but you don't know why.
No.
And that's, if we're gonna have a reasonable budget, we need to know the whys.
But you're never gonna know all the whys.
Nope,
So I mean,
you're never gonna know all of them,
no.
but
And I
it's
mean,
reasonable to.
So you keep on, we've got a new system, you keep referring to the old one, we don't have the old one anymore, we have a new system now that we may
No,
have to.
I'm not, excuse me, Linda, but I'm not referring to the old one. I'm saying that we got the numbers going back 13 years at least as a city. And if there is a flyer in there, we have you know, Joe, who's been here that whole time, that can speak to that. We have some of us that have been here long enough to say, I remember what that was. And that's one we have to anticipate again, or that was a once-in-a-lifetime deal.
Right,
But we keep budgeting on top of it because that one year we peaked, and then we're just basing this year's numbers, next year's numbers on this year's numbers, instead of saying, that was a peak we'll never see again. We shouldn't keep building on top of that.
yeah, and Mr. Mayor, like I said, I dropped that budget from 90,000 down to 60, so, and you haven't spent more than 40,000 or $50,000 in there, oh, 56, sorry, since that 90,000. So I thought 60 was reasonable.
Yes.
You know, and maybe, I don't know, you could drop the gravel and rock budget down, based on history a little bit, but, like you said, you know, right now your budget is a $44,000 increase over 21, and I think your goal is to get that down to 0.
Correct.
And so,
And that's why, you know, right now, we're going through the action items first, but then we can look at some of the particulars in the budget and say, is there $50,000 worth of reduction that can be seen without hurting us, without looking at our, you know, hurting our fund balance, without putting us in jeopardy. You know,
Right.
we've got a small contingency in there,
yep,
and we have a little bit of fat on some of these based on history,
yep,
and short of somebody saying this year we anticipate it being different. And that's kind of why we targeted the projected 2021. If you see something that's going to be significantly different in 2022, tell us now. Otherwise, 2021 with the sheriff and a % markup is what our target was.
right.
So
And
if we can come down overall approximately $50,000, you know, I'm still more comfortable knowing the numbers are real and in the right
Right.
category, but
Well, and unfortunately, Joe wasn't available this year
Yeah.
to help us out with any of that information, but, you know, we can take a look at those line items and maybe even take a look at the fire and see if, you know, contact Dave, see if there's some numbers there that he would be comfortable dropping. And then your other choice, of course, is to contact the county and see if they would be willing to only bill you for that half year or 3/4 of a year or whatever increase, and not the full increase.
yeah, you know, again, our goal was the full year plus the, you know, using the projected as the target. So we'll keep going through this list here,
Yes,
And
let's
then we
keep
can go-
going.
Yep.
go see where we can find the money.
Okay.
So item 9, page 11, transfers out.
Yeah,
So I have a question on this.
okay,
So we have 72.5 for equipment,
That's correct.
25 for capital. We took the 25 for capital off.
yep, we did, to get the budget down.
So my question is, we've got $275,000 in our equipment fund, and we're borrowing $350,000 for a truck and a mower.
We're borrowing $880,000 for a truck.
Well, that's a fire truck in there too.
Right.
But I'm just saying that right now, the dump truck with the plow is guesstimated at 270, and
Yeah.
the mower is at 75, so we're looking at 345.
So where the bonding all goes into the equipment.
I understand that, but I'm saying is we took the capital out here at 25, but we left the 72.5
That's correct.
when we already have a reserve of almost $300,000 in that equipment fund, and we're borrowing
Yeah,
350 more.
so,
So why would we take it out of the capital? Why don't we take the 72.5 out
yeah, because,
and leave the 25 in the capital?
so in the future, you're going to have to either levy for a transfer to your capital fund, or you're gonna have to levy for debt for your equipment that you're doing right now. The way I've got it set up right now is that you're gonna do a transfer into your equipment fund and pay your debt out of your equipment fund. That way, in the future, you will still have money available in your equipment fund to purchase the equipment that we have scheduled to be purchased in the future. And so what this 72.5 gets you is it gets you what you need to purchase next year and also paying the principal on the bonds. So starting in '23, you have $95,000 a year that you're gonna be paying down in the debt. And then in addition to that, there's
On the,
on the equipment debt,
on which?
on both the fire and the dump truck. They're both together. They're both going into the equipment fund. And so it's all in the same fund. And the equipment that is coming out of there in the future is basically the turnout gear, the portable radios, some mobile computers for the fire. They're spending at least $20,000 a year. And so, yeah, you have $300,000 available at the end of '22, but by the end of '24, you only have 281. And so I'm trying to keep you having a fund balance in there to cover your debt service, but also cover your future equipment. So if I have a 25-year equipment replacement plan out here, and you have to increase your transfers into your equipment in order to purchase the things that need to be purchased in the future. And so that's why it's important to do an equipment replacement plan so that you know how much you need to transfer in to make sure that you have enough to pay off your debt and purchase your equipment.
All right,
The
so,
other thing you could do is just do a straight levy for your debt. And then you pay for your debt separately, but you still need money to pay for your equipment. So,
yeah, I understand that, and
Okay.
short of seeing the 5, 10-year, 25-year plan, I mean, that was the understanding when we saw what the fire department gave us was, in order to afford radios in the future, you need to start putting aside $10,000 a year now.
Right.
Now, we need to know what radios we're getting for $100,000, but.
right.
But there needs to be something that says, here's the target, here's how much per year to reach
Right,
that
right.
target. And short of that, I'm just looking at $300,000 in the budget, and I don't know what we're spending it on. So having a reserve of $300,000 and continuing to add to it,
Right.
and then cutting our capital out for
So the-
buildings is,
The capital fund actually has, only after the end of '22, will only have $46,000 in it. But you have no spending in there at all, that I know of.
how much will it have?
It'll only have 46,000, because in '22, you're doing a new well, you're doing council chamber improvements, and you're doing pavilion improvements of $170,000. Right now, you've got 214,000 in there. And so if we don't do a transfer in, which is what I'm recommending, I would like to see another transfer in to the capital fund in the future to try to build those funds back up.
So we have 200 and how much?
214,000 at the end of '21 that I'm aware of right now. That could be different. There might have been some
Because we're gonna
spending.
be adding to that again? Right now, we're at 175.
At the beginning of '21, you were at 170.
Well, currently, as of August
Yeah.
31st, we're,
Okay, yeah. So, I'm looking at an old spreadsheet that I have, so I don't know what the new one here, I'm not looking at that, sorry. Let's see. But I hate to get too caught up in the minutia of this, let's see. So the building improvement fund, yes, 178. There must have been some spending that I didn't have in here.
it says,
Yeah, by the end.
disbursements of $3,089.80 for something.
The what now?
So, the 21 balance beginning was 168.9, we've added 93.45, we dispersed
Right, but this was
3,089.
based on budget, and so, it's actually gonna be higher than the 176. Well, no, I'm looking at parks, sorry, building improvements. Where am I?
Parks is 256.
Yeah, we were gonna be a negative, but that's if you were gonna spend your money this year and you're not. So, I should have corrected that, and I apologize. Because you're not gonna do the 150,000 that you planned on doing.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I have a question too, between page 18 and 19. So under 19, capital improvements, you've got pavilion improvements. Should that not be under park improvement? The pavilions are the parks, in the park?
Right, it can go either way. I moved the door into the parks, but nobody said anything about moving the pavilion into parks.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned that last time, that we said the concession, the beach, disc golf, Memorial Pickleball, and the pavilion should all move over to the parks.
All I saw was the concession stand door was going to be moved, and so that's what I moved. But I wasn't here for the meeting, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
And depending on tomorrow, if we approve the RCA I have, that could be a 21 budget item if they can get the equipment or the door in and stuff like that still this year. So,
Because we did not budget for that in 21, but you can do it if it's in the capital improvement type project.
Yeah.
So. That was, put in the 22 budget. So anyway, back to the equipment fund. Even though it looks like you have a $300,000 fund balance, you're gonna be paying your debt service out of that fund balance also, in addition to equipment. Now, you can go the other way, but that increases your levy by more than what I've projected. I've been able to keep your levy down by using the money that's in the equipment fund to pay your debt service, and not only, levy for it. So the levy it doesn't go up by the $120,000 you'd need annually to pay the debt service. It only goes up by the increase that you're doing the transfers to the equipment fund. So it's a smaller increase.
So now, there was some discussion in previous years that as we paid off the road grader and we paid off the maintenance building and eventually the fire engine next year, or 2 years, that we would keep rolling those funds into new debt service. So that rather than, it's already in the levy, we would take the, I don't know, it was 20-some thousand and $80,000, we would take that $80,000 to $100,000 and apply that to the new bonding the new debt service that we're picking up on the trucks. Is that?
And what you're doing is that you not only have the equipment that you're bonding for, but you're also bonding for a road. And so your debt service levy goes up. It was at 179.3 in 2001 or 2021. It's dropping down to 81.3 in 2022 because you only have debt service or debt out there for 2 bonds right now in 2022. And then it jumps back up to 142 in 23. So you can't roll a levy for debt if you don't have the debt. And you don't have the debt yet. You didn't have the debt until we're issuing the bonds in October is when we're selling them. So we have to do our preliminary levy before that. We do it on September 30th, and we don't have the debt to levy for. And that, even Ellers can talk about that tomorrow night. But since you don't have, they're spreading the debt out over a shorter period of time, rather than trying to get it approved prior to selling the bonds. You can't do that. So your levy drops from 179 down to 81,000. But that gives you the wherewithal to make up for that 95,000 you were short last year in the fund balance. You were going to use $95,000 to transfer funds out, and now in 22 you don't have to. You can have a small increase in your levy. Right now I have the levy increase at 3.35%, and that's including a $45,000 increase in your budget currently. So if you reduce that even more, if you reduce your budget more, you can reduce your levy more, or you can increase your transfers out. It's really up to you, but I don't recommend reducing your levy more, because as you can see on page 4, I have projected levies out there, and that's considering your future budgets, which, I'm not sure on, but I have a pretty good idea. And it's also projecting your future debt service requirements. And so in 2023, I'd have it going up 7.5%. In 2024, it's 7%. 25, it's 4.9. 26, it's 4.5, so forth. Now, obviously, those are just projections, and you can reduce that, but you have to work at it, because you have debt service there that is jumping up quite a bit. And that doesn't include the equipment, because I'm paying for that out of the equipment fund. It only includes your road improvement debt service, okay?
Okay.
That debt levy does not include the equipment fund?
Nope,
That's just the roads?
that's just the roads.
And that gets to one of our questions coming up, because that was, the question we had was, if we are servicing the equipment out of the equipment fund, then how does that impact the
So-
levy?
The equipment fund there's a transfer from the general fund, which is part of your overall general levy. And that goes to the general fund to help pay for the debt service on the equipment. So your equipment fund is actually paying for the debt service. We'll do a transfer or whatever into the debt service fund. But that's how your debt service is gonna be paid for. I can change that, and I can increase your levy, but your levy will go from 142,008, and it'll increase by $120-some thousand, because the debt service is about 100 for the equipment is 100 and some $1,000 a year. It's about $103,000 a year. So it would go up 105, because you have to figure out people are delinquent and they don't pay their taxes.
Is that because it's an 8-year depreciation on those things, or what?
It's a 9-year, the equipment is depreciated over 15 years, I believe, but it had to be a minimum of 10, because the debt is actually supposed to be a 10-year bond, but we're paying it off in 9.
Okay, so that's why it's 103,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's very minimal interest on here. It's just that we don't start the principal payments until 2023.
And that was, item 17 on the second page there. The intent of the question was, if we were paying the equipment debt service out of the equipment fund, and the levy was showing the road improvements, we're trying to distinguish there, so that we asked it maybe in a clumsy way, the equipment capital and road improvement capital funds, how do these affect taxes and levies? So the explanation was, if we're paying them out of the equipment fund,
There's a transfer.
there's a transfer, and it's still coming out of the general fund.
Yes, it is. It's
And
still
so
part of,
we understand that part, but
Yeah.
if we didn't do that, it's gonna increase the levy.
it'll increase the
Another
debt
100 and-
service levy, yes, not your general levy, so there's two separate
Debt
levies.
service levy.
Yep,
So that's the distinction we're looking for in item 17 there.
okay, and it's that 72,000 in 2022 helps pay the debt service levy going forward. And it'll have to increase in 2023, because you'll still be purchasing equipment. And, so in the future, actually in 2030 is when the fire department, or 2029, the fire department, is asking for some major equipment, and it's $200 and some thousand, and so in order to pay for that without issuing debt again, that's what would happen. Let's see, it's a Rescue One truck, I guess, out here. And then also the dump truck needs to be replaced, a 2007 dump truck. Out in the future, and so trying to avoid having to issue debt again for those,
Yep.
those pieces
Yeah,
of
we've been
equipment.
talking about it for a number of years, that
Yeah.
if we could budget appropriately and not have to borrow,
Right,
that's,
beneficial.
we can just get people to hold their prices on what we guesstimate now versus 10 years from now when we go to buy it. Haven't worked that one out yet.
Right.
All right, so item 10, we had talked about, it's on page 11. The intention was to, looking at the 2021 projected, and adding, at that time, it looked like 10%, and the sheriff's contract, how close can we get to the 2020 budget with these changes? So our target is to take a look at the expenditures and add the sheriff's contract and try and come in at our 2021 budget number. So we'll be looking at that. Right now, we're 47,255 high from that target. All right. Item 11 goes to page 17. And again, this might be where it's relatively small potatoes, but again, it adds up. If we look at, so the question is, why is this 68% increase in expenditures? This is in the recycling, and the comment is not sure where this is. So this got a little confusing,
Okay,
because in the intergovernmental, we have our $30,000 dollars in recycling funds. So I imagine that's the SCORE funds.
yep,
And then we had 19,000 on top of that for a building that we were
that's correct,
hoping to add on to,
that's correct.
all right? And so when I'm trying to match year over year, I'm taking that building's a wash. You know, 19's coming in, it can only be used for that building, it goes out
Right.
just for that building. So
Right.
I'm looking at the rest of that. If you took that 19,000 out of the expenditures and you compared 38,678 to a projected budget of 64,920, that's a 68% increase.
So
If you eliminate that one grant.
right,
Now, if we get another grant in 2022, that's great, but it's still gonna be a wash. So I'm just looking at the operating cost of salaries.
right,
Salaries are up
Yeah.
37%.
right,
Supplies are up from $200 to $1,200.
right.
Printing and utilities are $6,000 to $11,500.
So Mr.
Maintenance, so
Mayor,
these all got, hauling went from 17 to 30.
right, but Mr. Mayor, I think what happened is in 2020 and 21, there wasn't as much activity. And so I'm projecting that in 22, you're gonna have a lot more activity in the recycling fund. And therefore, you're going to be spending more money in there than what you've spent historically. So the hauler cost, I think the 28,000 is more like your average year. And so that's why I did not change that $30,000 budget. The printing and utilities, I think that is way down too in 21. I'm not sure why, but your normal cost there is probably the 12,000, and the 29,000 in 2020 included a one-time, what was it that you guys put in?
We did a recycling.
Yeah, you
In
did something.
2020, we did a recycling day, and then we paid,
We use COVID funds for them, Mr. Mayor.
we use it out COVID.
Well, that wouldn't be in here then,
Yeah.
no. So it would have been something that you got your $19,000 grant for. Because in 2019 and 2020, you received that additional $19,000 grant for, I think it was security.
It was cameras.
It was cameras.
Oh, okay.
And that's how, I don't know how it ended up in printing and utilities, but that's where it ended up in. So And I'm not sure in 2019 what that was about, how we received that extra 19,000. I don't know what that was.
It's applied for every year. I'm not sure what in 2019, what the use was for.
Yeah. But yeah, the projections are much lower than what,
Yeah, I'm looking at 71% increase, 153%
Right.
increase, 92%, 41,
so you're just comparing it to the
actually
21,
413.
to the 21 projected and not the 21 budget.
Right.
Yeah,
And that was our point. I mean, if
Yeah.
our budget was way over our actual,
right,
we should be
adjusting it.
adjusting to
Right.
the actual versus the budget.
And I thought that the intention for the recycling, so I do have Joe and I have Eric in there. And so, and those are real salaries that are being charged there. And I also have a seasonal person, Randy Pershke, I think it is.
Yeah.
So I've got, I've got the people in there, and whether or not they're charging their time there is another thing.
Yeah,
So, they are, so.
So right now, we probably, with this year, we have a part-timer there 3 days a week. And the intention was, with that the full-timers and other part-timers would be greatly reduced from having to
Okay.
put any hours in there.
So what that does is that it impacts your general fund. So because I've charged 5 or 3% of their time here, I have to go back and charge them to your general fund, and that affects your levy. So right now, they're in the recycling fund, where it doesn't affect your levy. But if I change it, they have to go back into the public works or parks, and that affects your general levy.
Yeah, and again, this is why we're trying to figure out what the numbers mean, and we want it to be accurate.
Sure.
And if they are putting any time in there, it should be charged to that, but
Yeah.
we just, if we're gonna budget properly, we need to know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
personally.
you're just right now taking a number that's saying X%
I
of
take,
their time goes to
actually, I take
recycling.
5% of each full-time person and put it in recycling right now.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
I had, it could be me, I wrote down that you had 3% of time to recycle, so now you said 5%.
Yep, I'm sorry, because I don't have my glasses on.
So is it
So,
3 or 5?
It is 5.
It is 5, okay, thank you, it's very
It's
possible I
5%
heard
of
it
each
wrong,
person, so,
okay, right.
yeah.
So anyway, that was the question on the 68% increase was, it seems like those numbers are,
And maybe there's not as much being charged there now because Joe is not working. And so,
well, and I think, again, what we've said is there shouldn't be, there should be minimal amount that ever goes in there that we don't get reimbursed for now. Where previously, there were a lot of things that we had to haul away that nobody paid for. And now that we have somebody staffing it whenever it's open, the intent was it's paid for. So he checks and, did you pay for your tires, your appliances, whatever? So there should be
right,
an improvement in the revenue and fewer things that we'd ever have to haul away that we didn't get reimbursed for. So that begs so what we went for charges for services, we went down from 24.4 to 18.9 on the revenue side. And I would say, again, it depends on what we're getting for the recycled goods. I don't know if cardboard and paper and, we hope to at least break even on the hauling cost. But I would anticipate charges for services would go up now that we're staffed,
right.
which again was one of our questions, is that we have a good idea that we have 32 hours a week that somebody's there, or 24 hours a week, isn't it? 8-hour days? So 24 hours a week that somebody's there, and we know their wage, and we anticipate the income or the revenue side of things to be improved with somebody there.
Right.
And the rest of it, the hauling, what we get for it, just depends on what the recycle market pays.
Well, I did
It
increase it,
fluctuates.
$1,950. I hate to, I'm very conservative when it comes to budgeting revenues, because I hate to be saying, oh yeah, you're gonna make this much money, and then you have this much money to spend, and then you end up spending more than you're getting.
Oh,
So-
I agree,
So I'm more conservative on the revenue side, but yeah, you have been getting, you know, you got $19,000 in 18 for charges for services. You got 21,000 in 19 for charges for services. You only got 14,000 in 2020.
and that's because the thing
Which
was
will-
closed down for
Right.
a year, so.
And then now in 21, I'm projecting you're gonna get 24,000. Now, that's a projection. And then I budgeted that you would get 18,900. So that, you know, obviously I can adjust this budget to match more of the 21, but it's still not gonna cover all of your costs. But it'll be close.
Yeah, if we can get that close, because right now, our expenditures in 2021 are projected, if you take out that $19,000 building, we're at 39,000.
Right, expenditures are way down,
Yep.
yeah.
And so maybe in a typical year, we're closer, if the revenue's slightly higher and the expenditures are controlled some, we might be closer to balancing there.
I can adjust the hauling budget, I'm comfortable with that. The salaries, you have to tell me, if you want me to shift it back to the general fund, I can do that. But like I said, that impacts your general fund
Well,
budget.
we don't know how much right now, from our standpoint, how much other people are working in there.
Right,
So I can't speak to that, that's something Lori's gotta look at.
how much time they're charging there. Right now, we have full-time employees working there, and so far, and I'm projecting full-time is gonna be 5,500, and I budgeted 6,300. And so, and then the part-time, I'm projecting it's gonna be 5,300, and I budgeted 86, because I was under the understanding we were gonna have more part-time people in 22. No?
Not in the recycle center.
Okay. So I can change that, I can reduce that. So, but right now, you do have full-time people working there,
Very minimal.
okay. Through August 31st. Oh, no, this was through June. This one's only through June.
Yeah, and when did Kelly start? Probably just after that.
June, July, he was in the middle to end of June, I believe.
So,
Yeah, I can take a look at those and change those.
all right, so continuing here, the 19,000, the outbuilding applied for recycling enhancement grant. If that's for the grant, should it be expense? Yes, we need expense. It's in on the revenue side, it's out on the expense side. Revenue from the haulers is in the charge for services.
It's not separated out, they don't separate it out at all.
Right. And that's just something that staff's gotta watch, if prices are up or prices are down, are we covering our hauling cost with
Yeah, I know.
what we're getting for it? All right, item 12, page 18, debt revenue, need more explanation. All right, 81.3 is the levy. Because we, 18.5 for the old fire engine debt. And 62.8 for the improvement debt, 2019. 127,775 in special assessments are 49,275 for the 2019A improvement debt and 78.5 for the 2021 improvement debt.
Page 17 on the new packet.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
it's
it's,
a-
I'm
it's-
thinking, why can't I find
I'm
those
I'm
numbers?
lost, I'm like,
It's one page.
why am I not seeing any of this?
Yeah, each, that's, okay.
One page shorter.
There we go.
So, but I did include the detail, so if you want to go back to the question, you can page down there and look at the detail for the debt service fund, which is the last few pages on that original budget question.
So on this, the 81,300, they're getting in,
It might be just easier to go to the detail, and that is at the very end, after the parks detail, is the budget detail. And you can see it, each one of the debt services right there. And you can see the greater debt, you're not paying for any principal and interest in 2022, your last.
the greater debt is done as of August, right?
Yep,
Basalt Street debt is done as well.
yes, that's done as well, except for any money that comes in gets transferred to the general fund, because the general fund paid for the debt stuff in advance. So we're just waiting on, there's some,
Green Acres,
yep,
which we could wait on a long time.
yep.
So the little bit that was there, and we've got,
Yeah,
basalt was,
I transferred it to the general fund in
You've already transferred it
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So there's like
So-
60,000 debt.
the little bit that comes in when Green Acres finally sells, then we'll go to the general fund. Debt service is done on the grader. The 2012 refunding bond will be
Yep.
done next year.
Yep, and we have enough in fund balance to make that payment, so you don't need to levy for it.
And so there'll be, in that fund balance, at 2576, where will that, if that ends up being there, where
So
will
we'll transfer that to one of the other bonds. So we'll probably transfer it to the 2019A.
okay,
You have to transfer it to another debt service fund. And that's the same with the 3,500, the greater debt. We might transfer that to one of the improvement bond debts too.
okay. And then, the fire engine debt ends in 2023.
And you'll have enough money in there at that time to pay for that. You won't have to levy for it in '23.
Okay. And then we get to the improvement bonds. $62.8 on the revenue side from taxes, so that's assessments.
62.8 is a levy, and the assessments are 49,275.
Oh, okay. And that interest is on the assessed values, or?
That is based on what was assessed when we did the project, and that's estimating what people will pay over the next 8 years to pay for the principal and the debt.
And so there's 113,000 coming in. We have a projected fund balance at the end of 2021 of 289.
So you're
And-
using about $20,000 a year, so over the next 10 years, you're gonna use $200,000 probably. And you'll end up with about a $70,000 fund balance, maybe. We'll see how it goes.
All right.
And then that's your new one. And you only pay interest next year on this. But you'll get money for specials this year and next year. And then you'll actually have a tax levy in '23 for this.
Okay.
And that, like we talked before, the equipment debt is actually budgeted in the equipment fund. so it's not in a separate levy. I could set it up as a separate debt service, though, I could certainly do that. But right now, we're paying it
But
off.
it's still, we want it to come out of the equipment fund.
Yep, we do, because that way we keep the levy down.
The 2021A improvement bonds are the amount we assessed last year.
I think it's being assessed this year, and that, the 150 is projected prepayment on those projects, because you're doing it this year. So these are prepayments on the new projects that you just did in '21.
Okay, so this is Ebony and Garnett and Rogers Lane.
Yes, yes. And not, that's a projection. I base it on what happened in 2019.
All right. Anything else on that one, folks? So the total debt so walk us through the total debt. That would be roads and equipment?
Nope, the equipment's not in there. This is only,
That's right.
yeah, this is only your 2012, your fire engine, and your 2019. Not your 2000, yeah. No, not, yes, for expenditures, you're
It's
still,
2000, it's the 2012 and
you're
the
still
fire
paying
engine.
that, yep. And the 2019. And just the interest on the 2021. No principal.
So that's the 45,000 that comes down in the fund balance from 557 to 512.
Where are you? Oh, the fund balance, yes. That's, yep. It reduces by 45,000. Because you're using fund balance to pay for, which one is it now? I gotta go back. You're using fund balance to pay for the refunding bonds, and you're using fund balance to pay for part of the fire engine. And you're using some fund balance to pay for the 2019 improvement bonds, but you're adding a lot of fund balance from the 21A. Because you'll get more in assessments than what you're paying out in principal and interest. So it's really a combination of a lot of things.
So does that, changes in fund balance, does that take into account rolling over the grader and the,
No, it doesn't change, it doesn't move it yet, because I don't like to move it until the year's completed,
yeah,
and so then,
but that, 35 and 25, so that
right.
$6,000 will.
Those will get transferred into a fund balance in '23, basically. You'll see that in '23.
Well, the one's done this year, the
The
grader.
Yeah, the grader, but it's not complete, We're not completely done, and I don't know where it's at, if I'm gonna allocate interest to it or not, or
Didn't we pay that one off in August?
it might have been paid in August, yeah. So I could look at it now and see where it's at, yeah.
Okay,
Because we don't get the taxes on that until December, so I don't know what we're gonna get yet.
all right. Page 20 of the old document.
So it'll probably be page 19.
All right, so move to park capital. So the concession stand, we should have had on there also the pavilion improvements.
Okay? I'll move both of them.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville?
I can't think of what the other pavilion improvements were gonna be, because what I brought forward was the interior of Now Then Pavilion and a little bit of work on the exterior, and that was under that $10,000. So I don't remember
That was under the
what,
concession stand door.
Yeah,
yeah, that's,
The other one was, I thought we were gonna have somebody fix the roof because they all leak.
yeah.
At the parks,
At the
Twin Lake
parks.
Park.
oh, it's a Twin Lake Park,
Yeah.
okay, all right, that's, I couldn't. And so that, those are the shelters, is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that, yeah, that should go under park also, okay.
Okay?
And that's just an estimate, we don't know what,
Right.
okay. Forgot about that one.
Okay?
All right, so item 13, road improvement, small city road assistant fund receipt. The question was, from a revenue standpoint, when we did projections for 2021, shouldn't that have shown up there as a projected revenue?
Probably, let's see.
Because I know we don't know what 2022 is going to bring, so we can't project it
No.
revenue there.
Yeah, so, it's probably in that $70,000, let's see here. Oh, no, it's not, because that's not, that would have, I can adjust that, it's for projection purposes, but yes, I can adjust that. I didn't even know about that until in August. So, I was over in Germany when I found out about it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
would also then, so I'm looking at page 2 is the revenues, the intergovernmental revenue that for 2021 projected is 119,818, and so that also is our LGA, is that?
So that should be for 2021 projected, that should be the LGA and
In
the
the small cities,
small cities.
Right, I don't have the small cities in there.
okay,
Is LGA in there?
Yes, LGA's in there.
okay.
And we know LGA for next year, so if you put that into 2022 projections? or proposed-
Yeah, the LGA for next year is 52,000. This year you're getting 70,000. There's some other money that you're getting here that
Well, the LGA is the same this year and next year.
the LGA
Legislature's already set that.
Right.
That goes under where?
Under,
Intergovernmental on page 2,
Instead
revenues.
of 104, it's gonna be 104 plus the 52,000.
no. Where are you?
Page 2, intergovernmental revenue.
Oh, that's for the total. That includes county. So
That also includes the recycles.
yes, yep.
Okay. So where, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
where does the CARES Act funding that we received,
Yeah, I didn't put that in here because we didn't budget for that, and so I didn't want to confuse you with having $350,000 sitting in here. We put it in a special revenue fund, and that's
Okay.
where we spend it out of.
okay,
And so whatever you get is what you spend, and I didn't include it in this because we don't budget for it. We did
So-
not budget for it.
But would that make sense? You know, we have our cash balance report we get every month. Would it make sense to have an account for that?
We do have an account for that, and
So-
it's called the CARES Act, and it's in a special revenue fund.
So I'm looking at our cash balances from tomorrow's meeting. And item 210 is CARES Act fund.
Uh-huh.
And we had a beginning balance of 85,265.
Right.
We received 450,839.
That's because Lori put in, we haven't set up any new funding, but we've got some additional funding for, what was it, the ARRA?
ARPA,
Okay, so we got 250,000 for that.
yeah.
And then we must have gotten some additional funding for CARES or something, I don't remember what it was.
This year?
Yeah, yeah. And you need to decide where you're gonna spend it. You have 3 years, I think, to spend
Yeah.
it.
That was all
Well,
on
so
there.
we have, in this year, we received 450,839, and we spent 277,395.
This year?
Yeah,
Okay, I don't
according,
know.
according to our cash balance statement.
Sure.
So what did we spend this year? And where's the extra 200,000?
We'll have to run a report and get that back to you. I don't know where that is.
Because right now it shows a balance of 240,338, and we
Right.
just got 250.
Right, and I think there was just a slight amount, there's probably something coded there that shouldn't be coded there. And because you did get the 250 this year, that's what you have to figure out where to spend. The other money was already spent.
Yeah, so there should be at least 250 in this balance.
Yes, yep. So there's something that's miscoded there that needs to be looked at.
All right. So that's where at least we'll be able to see what's in there, and then the second half of that comes next summer,
Yeah.
12 months later. And then second half of the LGA and the small cities road fund will be at the end of the year.
In December, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that just goes into the general fund as a receipt then?
Yes,
Because the small cities has to be used for roads. How do we make sure that doesn't get entangled with other general fund?
well, so the small cities is for road maintenance, I believe, or is it for road construction?
It's roads.
Okay, just
It-
period.
Because we're a small city, they don't have the,
MSA funds for you.
Right.
Yeah. So generally speaking, MSA funds get split. Part of it is for construction and part of it is for maintenance in a normal city that gets MSA funds. And they have
on MSA roads only.
yes, on MSA roads
This
only.
one we can use on any road.
Yes, and so you can put it in your general fund and use it as part of your maintenance, like your gravel, your whatever you're doing, your seal coating, that kind of stuff. Or you can put it in your or in your capital fund and reduce future bonding needs for roads, but it's not that much, it's only what, $70-some thousand? 90? Okay. So, I would recommend putting it in the general fund and offsetting your maintenance costs.
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of thing where it's nice to have if a road blows out, or to have a little cushion there, $90,000 cushion in that. Or if we need to patch a large section of a road that we didn't get to. I just want to make sure that it's designated for road funds.
Okay.
In that.
And so at the end of the year, what you can do is, we can bring you a resolution that says, let's designate this as, only for use on your roads. And it'll show up in your fund balance as a designation, and then you can use it just for road improvements in the future. Or you can use it this year. If you want to use some this year and some next year.
Yeah, so since we got half of it now, do we need a resolution? So let's say, one of the things on our agenda tomorrow night is a road patch, $12,000 road patch.
Okay,
That this might be an appropriate thing since it's money we didn't
sure,
budget,
yeah,
and it's a road patch we didn't budget.
yep.
Would we need that resolution tomorrow to designate it, or do we just? I just
So
want
what
to
we
make
can
sure.
do is when you approve the spending of it, you can say, we're gonna use the road, what's it called, the grant?
Small cities,
Yep, we're gonna use that money to fund this. And then at the end of the year, we'll subtract however much it costs you. If it costs you 15,000 or 10,000, we'll subtract it from the total amount that you get and then designate just the balance for future road and stuff,
Okay.
okay?
All right, page 21. That's 20 in the new one. Go to 20. So we had, on our capital plan, we had talked about, there was a placeholder of $900,000 in
Right,
roads for
right.
next year, and then 400,000 every year after that.
All right.
And so it looks like we're thinking about overlaying the commercial park.
Well,
This
that's
next
what, we talked to Shane, and he said that that's one thing that he's gonna recommend. And then I also included all of these streets that he said that you could actually do next year. But he didn't have dollar amounts for them, so I can't tell you exactly.
Yeah, so this goes back to probably our first discussion back in July, when you told us Shane was working on a road plan for us.
Right,
which
right,
It's unusual because it hasn't happened in the past.
okay.
So now that we've gotten what we thought were our major roads through, I'm surprised to have a $900,000 road hit us again.
I have no idea how much it'll be.
So somewhere we need to sit down in the capital plan and say, what is our actual 5 and 10-year road plan?
Yes.
So we should start preparing neighborhoods that are coming your way.
Yes, yes.
And in this, if we were to do the commercial park, is that another one where we typically, we haven't discussed commercial, but we do 50-50 there as well with the businesses?
Well, Shane said he would come and speak at the next meeting
Regarding
about
this.
all
Is that
this. But he said it's
tomorrow
gonna
or
take him,
October?
no, the end of this month, he said he can come. He said it's gonna take him a
Oh,
couple
the
weeks.
budget meeting? Yeah, because that's one we need to know, because if we're gonna, budget for that, we're starting out in the hole at 900,000. So. And then the question is, again, is that a 50-50 city
Right.
property owner?
Because then I could budget for some assessments.
Yeah.
Right now, all the assessments are gonna go to pay a bond issue that I would have to pay. Because I think if you do these road projects in 22, even at the 900,000, and do another $400,000 in 23, I'm gonna recommend that you actually issue debt again in 23 to help pay for these projects from 22 and 23. Because you can see here, you only have $1 million in fund balance, and you'll be using that up if you do these road projects, so.
Yep. Oh, so these are the ones he said, Iguana, 199th,
Yes.
Ferret, Garnet.
Yep. Mhm.
So then he's gonna go up north again, Garnet, Waco, 185th and Jasper.
Yeah, that can't. That would take, excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville.
yeah, that would, the 924 would not be sufficient.
To save up a few of those small city funds.
Yeah,
At least.
That's a big, well, so those were two roads we were saving for the MSA.
okay,
And because we were projected at 4,900 people,
right, you didn't
we
get
thought we were
there.
gonna go over in the next year or two.
Right,
And then we dropped to 4,500.
right.
All right, so that one, Shane will be here on the 27th to talk further.
And just so you know that on the 27th, we'll bring a resolution adopting a levy, a preliminary levy, and a preliminary budget. Like I say, you can continue to work on the budget, but we need to pass that levy on that night.
All right, on page 20 here still, we've got repair and maintenance in our capital plan still.
Right,
And I thought we were gonna get rid of that.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be in there. I think it just is a coding issue, so, or how it's maybe being billed. We'll have to take a look at that. I left 10,000 in there. It should stay in the general fund. That's where your maintenance is. Yeah.
All right, and then 22, which is 21 here, so. There, in the capital plan, we weren't gonna have the radios or the turnout gear, I thought, so there was a, fire department had a extra equipment that, they had planned on having in with the tanker. And it did not include the radios or the turnout gear. Those were general budget items that we're gonna put money aside for every year. But that wasn't gonna be in the,
So it is in the budget in here, and that's why it's listed down here. But it's not part of the bond issue, if that's where you're going with this.
yeah. But there were other things that were, I thought were gonna be part of the bond issue. We
Well,
had a list.
he's spending, money this year, you know, on other equipment that, was in the budget last year. What the heck was it? I don't know. So he's spending basically 35,000 of his bond issue money this year. And then next year, we're spending $901,000 of the 880. Out of the bond issue. So we're during the Sterling truck, the Toro mower, but the radios and all of that, they still come out of the budget. They're still budgeted. Where it comes from as far as funding goes, that's not what was listed in the bond issue. The bond issue had other things listed. In fact, I think the bond issue had,
I think I emailed that to you.
yeah, it had the Sterling truck, the Toro, this SCBA packs, the thermal imager, the extraction tools, and the tanker. That's actually 884,000, so it's a little bit more. Must be less. I don't know what's up. Maybe the extraction tools. But anyway, there was a different listing of the bonds, for the bonds. So this is just budgeting to spend what needs to be spent for fire and public works.
So I'm looking at an email here, that we had authorized up to $600,000 for the fire department to be part of this bond issue.
Right.
And that was $450,000 for the tanker,
Uh-huh,
$30,000 for extrication tools,
uh-huh.
$52,000 for SCBA packs,
Yep.
$7,000 for thermal imager,
Mm-hmm.
$20,000 for a Lucas CPR device, $2,500 for an AED, $55,000 for 2 rescue struts, $11,000 for 6 nozzles, and $3,000 for 2 saws. Grand total $598,500.
So I don't have that list.
I don't think I have that list.
So,
And you're copied on it, Lori.
When
It's
was
on,
it
September
sent?
2nd. It's from Dave Schmidt to Lori and Joe Lawrence.
so I have him spending, $47,000 in money this year out of the bonds. And then I have him spending, and I don't know what it's on, what is exactly it is, but, and then I have them spending, extraction tools, this and this. 540,000 next year. So the 540 plus the, what did I say, 47, that gets me to 586. And you're saying 589?
598.5.
Okay,
So
so,
this-
well, I'm missing some money, so, and that's fine, he just needs to let us know.
So
So
let
this
me
was
ask
our
Lori, if,
conversation when we were bonding and he threw in all the extra things. And we
Oh.
said, we can't
Oh,
bond for
for
more than
more.
what council approved.
Right,
So he said, well, I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm just saying this is what, he wanted all this other stuff in, but we were in the middle of bonding and you can't throw that at Ellers that, oh, we're gonna do this instead now.
okay,
well, I think what he's saying here is the council approved $600,000 and this is
Right.
what made up his $600,000.
So it didn't matter at the time of bonding, we weren't changing the total amount. So when he was throwing all these new things, I said, well, we have to make sure that we get council's approval on it. So you were copied on it then apparently too.
Apparently.
Probably blind copied, yep. So.
I don't see me on it, but it's on my email here, so.
But we couldn't approve those purchases, that's a council approval, for them to purchase other items than what they've already asked for.
So my
that's what I
question
was
is,
telling him.
if he has, if we've approved $600,000 and we know 450 of that's a truck and 150 is something else.
right.
If we go through with this bond and the authorization is there for 600,000, does it matter when he spends that?
He has 3 years.
And if he spent it all this year, once the bond is completed, it doesn't matter?
Doesn't
Or if
matter.
he just has to get it done within 3 years?
Yep.
And so the individual items, then he would just come back and say, when he wants to buy the extrication tools or SCB, whatever, he puts it through saying it's funded. He would put an RCA in, say, I want to buy the extrication tools, and it's coming out of the $600,000.
Right.
Right,
Okay,
so it doesn't matter.
all right.
It's 8:10. We just made it through the list.
Almost.
Let's keep rolling here.
It's gonna be.
Roads, ditches, and
Nice money.
culverts.
That thing is wrong. That thing says 3:45.
Oh, I wasn't. Well, are we done with this list?
Well, just the roads, ditches, and culverts, we got, the question is, Shane says 10 to 15 hours of his time to do this. I don't know. Do we know what 10 to 15 hours estimate is, what his charges are these days?
I'd have to look at his hourly rate, I don't know that I know his hourly rate. But I'll look. It would go under whatever he charges for general government.
Because I know it was part of the road plan at one point, was the roads, ditches. Part of that plan, so. All right, so there's the action items. So I go back to the packet we got for today's meeting.
Yeah,
And it just trying to rectify some numbers. So on page 6, under 2021 projected,
okay,
total revenues of $1,841,873. On page 7, 2021 projected revenues, it's $1,800,869. So we're $40,000 difference.
so page 6, I'm sorry, where are you, page 6?
So page 6 of.
Yep, 180, okay, and then page 7,
Yep,
okay,
same column, but we're $40,000, $40-some thousand difference,
okay.
41,000.
Oops, I keep going to the wrong one.
And then, again, I don't know what it does to our math, but on the 2021 budget, on page 6, it's $1,775,000 and $1,776,000.
Is this all in the projected, you know, obviously I've
No.
got, no, it's not.
No, this is on the actual budget amount, 2021 budget amount.
Oh,
No, it's projected.
But the projected is the one that, the $1,841,000 versus the $1,800,000 is projected.
right, I'm missing something obviously in the projected,
Yeah, because all the other numbers match up, except for
yeah,
the 2021 budget on page 6 is 1,775,000, and on page 7 is 1,776,000. That looks like a typo, one way or the other.
And it's not a typo because I actually, there's formulas in here, so my formula must be off in the 2021 or the 2020, yeah, the 2021 and the 2020 projected in the budget. I'll check those numbers.
And so on the expenses, we're at, on page 6, the expenses are 1,473,214. For a excess revenue of 368,659.
Right, but you have to go down to the net changes in fund balance of 262,159. So you have to include transfers out, because under, am I doing that over here too, or not? God, I swear I put all these numbers together so they were perfect. But obviously not, I'm looking at it backwards here. Upside down, let me rotate this view. And I apologize if my numbers are off, if this is a spreadsheet that I'm working with and it's quite large. And so it's better to have other eyes and not enough eyes on all of these numbers. Oh, let's see here. I have to just pull it up. I will verify my numbers again and make sure that they're accurate. I don't know why they would be off. I don't know why they would be off.
So then, continuing down there on page 6,
I
other
wonder if
financing sources. So that's where we have our operating transfers out and in. And the net change in fund balance is 262,159. On page 7, other financing uses, we have the same capital fund, equipment fund for 107.5. We don't have the transfer in, but our change in the fund balance is 220 instead of 262.
Yep, I have to update that number. So I have two separate spreadsheets. One has the levy and all of that stuff on it, and the other one has the budget detail. And I obviously did not update my levy projected numbers. I know my budgets are right, but my projected numbers are slightly different than what was in the, I don't have it linked. So I will correct that, and get you the corrected ones for the next meeting.
And so then,
The corrected amount would be the 262,159.
okay,
That's the right number for the net changes in your fund balance.
so then the general fund balance on January 1st was 652,828, carried over from December 31st the year before. And we're projecting a general fund balance of 914,987.
Yes.
December of this year.
Yes, yep.
And that'll carry over to January, and it's just a placeholder for December 31st of 2022.
That is correct.
So we're sitting at 62% of a fund balance.
That's correct, of
Which
your
is-
expenditures. You're sitting at 62% of your expenditures, which is a very healthy fund balance.
Yeah, and we were talking about being careful not to let it get too high, too.
Right. But next year you can see, based on expenditures, it's only at 50%, even at
Right.
900.
Right. And our target area has been
40 to 50.
40 to 50.
Yep,
So the 62 is.
it's quite high, yep. And it's partly because we didn't know where the fire was gonna come in. They're way under budget. We budgeted 300,000, they're coming in at 150. And then we were short-staffed. We didn't hire a full-time person for administration, and Joe's been out all year, and so you're under budget in a lot of areas. You're under budget by quite a bit.
All right, so then, you must have a third spreadsheet,
Yep,
because on page 8, the projected revenues are different numbers than on page 6 and page 7.
On page 8?
Yeah, so if you take a look at
Okay.
page, so on page 6, your projected 2021 is 841, 873. On page 8,
it
it's
was,
842, 873. And the 2021 budget on page 6,
the projected on page 6 does not include the transfer in of $1,000, and then on page 8, it does. That's the $1,000 difference. So
okay?
that's the only difference.
So then on page 6, on the budgeted amount, it's 1,775,000. Page 7, it's 1,776,000, and on page 8, it's 1,871,000.
And
Because
that,
we transferred in.
again, that's the transfer in or use of fund balance. I'm showing that as part of total revenues on page 8, and then on page 6, it is not part of total revenues, it's down below. You can see it's a net change in fund balance of 95,000, and the $1,000 is a transfer in. So what I'm trying to do is give you different perspectives of what is going on. So normally you budget for use of fund balance, but it's hard to see, oh, I'm using fund balance if it's budgeted up in the revenues. And so I like to pull it out and show you you're using your fund balance in 2021. And then I like to show it like it is in the budget, where it is included as a transfer in or use of fund balance. And so then it's included in 96, so you would have a zero budget change in your 21 budget. You have a balanced budget. And how you get there is by using fund balance.
Okay.
And I know it's kind of funky to show it that way, and I can definitely just take out one of these so it's not so confusing. So,
Well, as long as your spreadsheets match up, that's,
yeah, right, exactly. I know what they're doing, but it's hard to, say that they match up when some of the other ones did not. But that's the difference between 6 and 8. And I'm not claiming 7, I don't know what's going on there, I screwed up.
all right, so the question at this point is, with what we've discussed by going through the action items, can you look at the numbers and give us a projected, proposed 2022 budget that is the equivalent of or equal to our 2021 budget while including the entire sheriff's account?
Well, I'd have to find $47,000 to reduce it by, so
Yep.
48,000, basically. I think we talked about this a little bit, I mean, I could look at fire, frankly, I think they're still over budgeted at 276. And I could look at, Public Works, they're at 145 for maintenance, we could probably get that down to 130. But I think, and we can look at parks. So I can come up with 10,000 here, 10,000 there. I cannot take it out of transfers out. You need the money in the equipment fund in the future. I mean, I could take it out of there, because we do have bond money there. But-
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Blake.
why are we so focused on keeping exactly the same amount? Why
Well,
is that so
what-
important? I mean, don't you think that, cost of living and things change, and maybe we have a few more expenses. Maybe we can't keep it exactly the same as last budget.
So again, what we discussed at our last meeting was, rather than use the budget that's $390,000 over in revenue over expenses, we would take the actual expenses from this year and use that. So the discussion we had last time is, if we are $390,000 over this year, we have the $114,000 increase from the sheriff. That leaves us $70,000 to increase this year's spending and still come in at a 0% levy increase. So we're still increasing over last year's actual spending, and we're adding in the sheriff. But we're just doing it, our target was to come in at no increase.
Well, 120 of it is your increase in your fire, so they're only coming in at 150, and you'd budget them at 275 or 276.
Yeah, so if
So that's 150 of it right there. The sheriff is $114,000 over what you spent last year. So that's 260,000 right there. So I'm not sure where you're trying to come up, but I can try to come up with $45,000, but
Can we, Mr. Mayor, just
Councilman
going all
Rowland.
this discussion, can we take 10 out of the park, 10 out of public works, 5K from the recycling on the expense side, and then 15K out of the fire? That gives us 20, 35, 40 of the 47.
the recycling doesn't impact the general fund.
Recycling doesn't?
No.
So then we got 20, 35 out of the 47, so then the net increase would be 12 grand.
And if there was any other, there were some other tweaks that you had in there that,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville.
one of the things we talked about last week, and it's on page 8 of tonight's packet, is elections. We increased, so 2020 actual was $11,093. We increased it to $13,475, but we talked about the fact that it's not a presidential, it is the state
off-year.
levels, and why would that go up so much?
We had
And I thought we had
talked about
got
that last time
going down
being
to
10.
10,000.
What did we come up
We'd cut,
with
Came
last
up
time?
with 10.
$10,000.
That we could cut off?
No, that we reduce it by,
to 10,000.
So it doesn't
About
matter if it's
4,000.
a presidential or just a regular election, we still hire the same amount of judges. The process is still the same. It could maybe reduce in hours, but I don't know. But the same amount of judges are here and we're paying them the same amount.
yeah, and we had looked at, and the last time it was, the salaries and benefits were 83, and we went up to 93. Materials and supplies was 1,000, we went up to 1,475. Maintenance and contract was 13, we went up to 22. So we just looked at, if we're paying the same, that'd be 1,000 there, 500 on the materials and supplies, and 1,000 on the maintenance and contracts. So that was 2,500.
So none of those prices go up each year?
Don't know.
I mean,
That's what we asked last
That's
time.
what you have to figure out, is, are things gonna go up? In price, everything seems to be going up. So I mean, how can we say it's gonna stay the same?
Well, again, that was the question we asked, is why is it going up? Is there an increase of some sort, or is it just a percentage markup?
Oh, okay.
I think we projected that you were gonna have to pay more in salaries, because now people aren't willing to work for $14 or $12 an hour or whatever it is. I mean, they're working for $20 an hour at McDonald's, so I think that in order to attract judges, you're gonna have to pay more money. And I don't know, materials and supplies, everybody's costing more, so.
Well, we can ask what they are now, but this is next year, this
Right.
time next year that we're gonna be buying the materials and supplies and renting the equipment, so what they give us a quote for this year is not gonna be the same as next year. Could stay the same, could go up, I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, that's a budget, you guess.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville?
so a question on maintenance and contract services. So do we have a contract with the county for the equipment? And have they advised us as to whether there'll be an increase next year?
No. I haven't advised us, but they may know. already, because they're
Yeah,
working
that
on their
would be a-
budget right now.
Question to ask. In salary and benefits, we've gone up $1,000. How, and I thought you had said there may be less election judges next year because of, that it's just a statewide versus a presidential.
We have, we have them all scheduled for certain places, and then they shift, and some work all day, some work for a couple hours. But I didn't plan on having less judges.
Okay.
What could happen is maybe, because it's not a presidential, maybe it'd be less hours, but it's hard to predict that. We're required to be open a certain time, and then it's a matter of how quickly they can get closed down and get the numbers together. So I don't know what that could be.
Has there, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
has there been any discussion amongst the clerks as to salary increases for election judges?
We haven't really talked about it this year. We pay $10. That's pretty low
Yeah,
in comparison,
very low.
quite low, yeah.
So how do we want to move forward here? Are we giving Lori the task to go find 47,000, or are we giving her a range?
I'd say the task would be find 47,000 or tell us why we can't. Obviously, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. So the 47,255, is that where we're at?
I would give her a range.
And I would like to know if the fire is off limits or how that works. I mean, do you want me to meet with Dave again and talk to him about his budget numbers, or?
Well, I think that needs to be done.
And if he says no? I mean,
You're gonna come after Joel's park budget,
see,
aren't
I've
you?
just like been a manager for a lot of years. I've never,
Forget that, you know, I could find it right here, that pickleball court.
Oh, there it is.
I'm just
I'm
saying,
good about
I
stuff.
think you need to go
figure
back
it
to him and say,
Get it
we're gonna
acknowledged.
reduce your budget by 20 grand.
There you go.
What does that mean?
Yes,
He's a
yes.
So,
contractor.
I think you need to say,
Yeah.
if the fire department's going down 20, park and rec is going down 10, public work is going down 10.
Yep.
That's 40 grand, and then you give Lori and the fire chief, how does that impact us? And we leave it at 40,000, not try to find the other 7,500.
That sounds reasonable. How does that impact him? You know, if he had,
If he had to cut it by 20,
If he
it's
has to
only,
cut it by
it's less
20,
than
what's that mean?
10%, you
Yeah.
know, so.
fire department is a very expensive venture, and our city has to pay for it, and if we want that, this is the price we pay. It's raising cost on everything.
Yeah, historically, you paid $70,000 in total cost in 2017, 90,000 or 92,000, 2018, 112,000 in 2019, 117,000 in 2020, and your projected is 148,000 for 21, and your budget is $276,000
Yeah.
for 22.
So there's where it is, right there.
Yeah.
So, team, what do you think? We give them that direction?
Do we vote on this or what?
Yeah, you have to give us some direction here so we can.
Mr.
we have to-
Mayor,
we have to-
Councilmember Greenberg.
how important is it in the scheme of things that we get this $47,000 out of our 1.6? million?
No, it's 1.9, is it?
1.9.
Yeah, 1.9, yep,
How big of a percentage is $47,000 out of
2.5. A 2.5% increase in your budget.
it? Okay.
Well, it's 2.5 this budget year to last budget year,
That's correct.
but it's 20% to expenditures to the budget.
But that's in projected, so that's just based on what I'm projecting, and I could be off.
Yep.
But if you look even at previous years, if you look back, you know, in 2019, you were at 1.68, but that's including, you know, your transfers out, so. I have to go somewhere where I don't have to see the transfers out included in there. There we go. So generally speaking, your operating expenses, 2019 it was 1.4, 2020 it was 1.5, 2021 I'm projecting 1.5. The 21 budget was 1.76 and the 22 budget is 1.8. And the increases are $114,000 in your public safety. Basically, it's all in public safety.
And between the fire department and the cops.
Yep, it's nothing else. That's where your increases are. Your general government is going down $4,000, your public works is only going up $1,000. And that's from budget though, that's not from actual.
Yeah, I keep going back to actual, because our
Yeah,
actual
I hear you.
projected 2021 is,
But let's go back to 2020 actual then. So your general government, well, even projected for general government, it's only going up from 590 to 635. Your public safety is going from 514 to $750,000. So that's $240,000 right there. Your public works is going from 327 projected, but your 2020 actual was 407, and the budget in 22 is 409. So it's basically a $2,000 difference in that. And your parks and rec, 2020 was 35.5, and you're budgeting 50. So there is $15,000 there that you could potentially, or 10,000, I wouldn't recommend.
So the improvements, right? The park?
No, this is just in the general
This is
fund.
expense.
Yeah, this is
Capital.
just general fund.
That's why I was saying if you, take 20 out between the two of them, and then take another 20 out of the fire, is 40.
Yep,
And that'll do it.
And if Lori comes back and says, I can't do 20, I can do 15, then we settle on 35 and move forward, or whatever the analysis is. Or have that discussion.
and what is your goal here, to get the general levy down? Is that what you're trying to do, or what?
yeah, so if we could come in based on our actual, which is our projected actual for 2021 versus our proposed budget for
I really don't like
2022.
using that number, Mr. Mayor, because there was so much that was missing in that actual, because you had staff that wasn't here, and it was, you know, I think that you didn't get everything done that year. I
But-
prefer that you went back to 2020 and looked at your 2020 actuals and added 10% to that, because that, I think, is more realistic. So your 2020 actual was 1,488,000. But then you're gonna have, you know, you're gonna add on the, $115,000 for the sheriff alone. Now I'm up to 1,752,000, and you're gonna add on another 150 for the fire department. Now I'm up to 1,000,009, so I'm already over what I spent just between the fire and the sheriff. What I spent in 2020 actual.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Blake?
Because we're adding these huge items,
Yeah.
a fire department for crying out loud, to our community, we can't think we can keep a budget the same when we're adding a fire department and a huge increase from our
Sheriff.
sheriff. I mean, it's what we're doing for the we're putting a lot of money into the safety of our community right now. And I don't see how we can escape thinking that that's not gonna cost us something.
Oh, I understand. The fortunate thing is we're not starting a fire department from scratch. We've always had the operating cost. as part of
Some,
it.
but nothing like
And the
this.
administrative cost was significantly less, but was about to increase more than double than what we're paying. So the administrative has gone up to 75,000. And the operating cost should be approximately the same. We're gonna add firefighters coming up, but, so I think that there is obviously some administrative increase in that. And we knew that going in, there was gonna be some upfront costs.
Well, and all the equipment and the well and the addition to the fire station, I mean, there's a
The
lot
addition
of
was
things.
COVID,
Well,
but yeah, we knew there would be some upfront costs, but that should level out.
eventually, yeah.
Yeah. But yes, getting started, we do have expenses that we shouldn't see again.
So I think if we're 47,000 over, we're pretty lucky, actually.
Well, I think if we can tighten it up, I think it's a reasonable thing to do.
I agree, but I think that we don't need to have a specific, you have to do this much. I think that the idea that let's see what we can do. Let's try, see how much we can get tightening up. Send them off with that kind of a,
Yeah, and that's, obviously, that's, one of the things we talked about on our action items was the, can we, item 10 was, how close can we get to the 2021 budget?
right, and
And
just,
We're only
and with the
47,000
understanding
over.
is, we need somebody who's got their fingers in the budget every day saying, this will hurt, and yeah, this one might be a little fat. But if we don't know that because we don't have those numbers.
Well, I'm
They do.
pretty confident in the numbers here, except for the fire is the only one that is just totally out there. I don't know where the numbers are coming from for that budget, because I don't see it happening. So I understand that they were only partly staffed this year, but, they've got budget for employees. They've got $84,000. And this year, we're spending 26,000, so, but
it's a big jump.
it is a big jump, and I can't justify it, and I can't argue, because I don't know. And so that's why I like the idea of just saying, here's what, Public Works, you cut 10,000, Parks, you cut 10,000, and Fire, you cut 20, and let us know where you're gonna cut it. And then you move forward from there, and that's what you do.
All the other numbers, we've gone through invoices
Yes.
and everything.
Yes.
They're very detailed, but
We call
like
it
she said,
base.
the fire, it's
Yeah.
unknown right now.
Totally unknown.
So we call
What's that?
You said we could have a bake sale,
We call it
maybe,
bake sale.
raise a little money. I know
No.
Mary would
There's
love
somebody running for
that.
office a few years ago said that we need to turn this into a bingo hall.
it. Yeah, we call it
Cover
bake sale, we need to
expenses.
find some money. So I would propose that and then come back on the
7,
27th with somewhere between 0 and 40
40,000.
is what the ask is.
So if I
See
come
what you
back
can
with,
do.
so if I come back with 40, your levy goes down to less than 1%.
If you do what now?
If I come back with $40,000 less,
Cut.
if I cut 40,000, your levy this year is under 1%. But then your levy increase next year is 10. So what we do this year impacts how much you're gonna be able to
Yeah, I
increase
wanna
it
do
next year
that.
without a very ugly situation. And that, like I say, that my projection is just that, a projection,
Yep.
I can tell you my budget, next year does not, it increases by a total of, $20,000 over what I'm doing right now. And so there's not a lot of wiggle room next year either. So,
But next year we'll have a better,
idea of the fire,
we'll have an actual of the fire because we'll
yes,
have
a full year.
a full year of a full team, right?
Yep.
So potentially, maybe not the full 10%.
Yeah, you just have to see how it goes, right? But
Right,
you'll have
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Greenberg.
I'm thinking, being that it's fresh on the minds of the people, that we just got a fire department, we might want to start educating them on what's coming, or somehow let them know.
The cost of having a fire department, an increase, you mean? Is that what you're saying?
Because from going from 5% one year to 10% the next year is gonna be sticker shock.
Yeah.
1% to 10%.
Now, 1% to 10%.
1%.
Yeah, it's gonna be
And
severe
10%.
sticker shock.
Right now, it's at 3.35.
That's why maybe we should leave it, so
Mr.
that
Mayor?
it isn't so huge.
Councilmember Rainville.
So the question would be, if we're currently at 3.35, what would that do to us in 2023? If we left it at 3.35?
Projected right now is,
It's projected at 7.5%, and that includes a
So that's,
$20,000 increase in the budget, which maybe we can reduce if we know that the fire is gonna come in under $200,000 annually, and they're not gonna be 276. That would be a huge change.
Or our
And Mr. Mayor?
sheriff lowers his costs.
Yes, yeah.
That's something. Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
So then that 751 for next year, if we don't do that 900,000 in roads in 2023, what would that, let's say we only did half of that 900,000
And that won't impact it, that impacts the 24 levy.
for, okay.
Yep,
Because we'd be borrowing again for that?
yep,
For that into-
Yep.
okay.
Is that shown here on your 7?
yes, in my projection there, the 182, 3.
So is that the direction to give the team?
Go find 40,000.
Okay, but can I, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Blake.
maybe we should rethink this. I mean, do we really want to go find 40,000 and next year have a 10% increase? Maybe we bite the bullet and keep it at where it is and hope next year we won't have such a huge increase. I mean, people are not gonna swallow that well. I mean, maybe it'll turn out great.
Right.
But what if it doesn't?
Right.
I mean, you got two sides to look at here. If it doesn't turn out well, and actually the fire departments decides they need more,
Right.
then we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So I mean, we need to vote on it, but I'm wondering if we should even knock it down the 40 if it's gonna make a huge impact next year for our levy.
Well, I think we take a look at what 40,000 does to us, from the budget standpoint, and then, we can have it justified or not by our next meeting. And gives us a chance to think about next year as well. So what does it do to us this year, and what does it do to us next year?
Yeah, good idea.
Because it's pushing 9 now, so.
So Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I need to come back with a resolution for our next meeting unless we're gonna meet again to talk about this prior to adopting a resolution. So I need to have a resolution for the levy adoption, and I guess it's flexible, I don't know,
Well, it can be determined at the next meeting, and then we just put in the number.
Okay, okay,
So if you have it prepared and then we give the options, then we can
Okay.
decide from there.
okay.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Blake?
I just want to clear it up in my own head. You're going to present to us how we can cut the budget by 40,000, and then you're going to present to us, if we do that, what the consequence might be for the following year. And you'll also figure out where you could take that 40,000 out
Yep. I
this
can-
year.
Yep.
But then the following year, what would that mean? Good or bad? You know,
Right.
what's the good that might happen and the difficulty that
So
might happen,
you're coming from resolution somewhere between 1.918 million and then 1.918 million less 40.
Right.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Greenberg?
Lori Yeager,
Yeah,
the bulk of the 10% increase is bond issues for road improvements and for capital improvements for fire trucks and such, and
It's
fire
for-
equipment.
nope, it's not for fire equipment, but it is for, the bulk is for, road improvements.
Okay.
And there's a small portion of it, $30,000 is for equipment.
Okay.
And part of that was, you know, in an attempt to get a better number on our bond, we didn't bond last year and this year. So we didn't have bonding costs both years.
Right,
The problem is, we didn't take part of that and eat it this year and part of it next year. We put 2 years all into next year. So we got 2 years worth. So we've got $2 million worth of bonding all in 1 year. And in hindsight, you know, what we're saving on the bonding cost is going to bite us on the levy.
Right, because you're only at $88,000 this year.
right, 81,
It cruises up to 250,000 pretty quick.
yeah.
But we had some options with the roads you were thinking, Mary?
Why, but, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville?
without having numbers from Shane, I don't know what our options are. You know, I thought we were going in next year at 450, but now we're at 9, and not knowing what that encompasses. I don't know.
And that's totally a guess.
Mr. Mayor, again, that doesn't affect that.
No, it doesn't
But
affect
it
the
will
levy.
affect the bonding for 2023.
That's correct.
So that 240 could be less or more, right?
All right, right.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville?
And I don't want to bond for any more than we need to. You know, I don't want to. So I'm even uncomfortable with the bond we're going to talk about tomorrow, because we had talked about being able to reduce that number a little bit based on the 2 road projects that were going. Now, there was an email today, I was gone all weekend. I've not read the email that came in today on roads, the update.
Ultimately, the extra gravel, or the 100 loads of gravel that came into Ebony and Garnett was part of the plan, part of the bid.
Okay,
So that should be a $50,000
okay.
below estimate. The gravel, we don't have a price on, but when they did Rogers Lake, they found that after they reclaimed, there was no gravel on the shoulders. And so they had to bring in more gravel, about 7,100 tons, which will be an added cost. It'll still be under the budgeted amount, but it won't be, we won't see that 100,000 necessarily under. They did say, because they brought in the gravel and they pushed a lot of it to the shoulders, what they had planned on spending graveling on the shoulders, they won't have to do all of that because they've got the gravel from, they just hauled in. But it's not gonna counter everything they did. So the net cost increase for the additional gravel will still be under the estimated and quoted price, or the estimated price. We just don't know how it's gonna work out between the shouldering and the actual road gravel.
And was, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
and was
Rainville.
that a miss by our engineer? who's been driving those roads for, I've been on the council 9 years, and he's been driving them a lot more than that and knows the issues there.
I will let.
And I don't mean to
I will
throw
let
him under
Shane
the bus,
explain
but I
that.
just wonder, is that?
But somewhere, we didn't do core sampling down there like we did in the rest of them. So I don't know. All I know is when they went to schedule the blacktop, there was not enough gravel there to do it, and they had to bring in another 60, 70 loads.
But we're still in the budget below. So from a project standpoint.
The question is, we were 150,000 under the estimated, and that's what went into the bond. So if the question we had for setting up the bond, could we get,
What better rate or lower prices,
Yeah.
we were 150 under, now we're not.
right, and so even if we just went down 130 and expect 20 in gravel, do we come in at, 2.7 instead of 2.83? And what does that do to us if we,
You know, and you can reduce the bond sale price. This is I believe it's just a pre-sale this tomorrow. And, so they haven't gone out and issued the debt yet, so I believe you can still reduce it. Otherwise, what you do is that when you get your bond money, you put it in your debt service, and then you just, instead of levying, you pay your debt service off with that extra debt. That money that you got from the bond.
okay, so that being said,
That happened in 2019, that's right?
yes.
80,000 was transferred into your debt service fund.
So if we were to do that, so the two questions I would have is have Shane, since he knows how much gravel he hauled in, because they were blacktopping today, so the graveling's done. Can Shane tell us how much extra he put into gravel? He won't know till the shouldering's done, but how much he recouped on the shouldering. But if we could find out what Shane thinks that increase was, and if you could tell us what does that do if we have an extra $100-some thousand that we can put into debt service, what does that do to next year's projection?
And I believe that Shane talked with Bruce from Ellers in August and gave him updated figures. And so the figures that Bruce from Ellers is working with is numbers that Shane has given him. And I'm sure that as the project goes on, numbers change, but I just think that it's, I don't know, specifically, he's probably saving in one area and he might not be saving in another or something like that. So the numbers look good. And so
Yeah,
Shane-
and we don't know what that is. He did say that what the extra cost in gravel could be, some of it could be made up in the shouldering cost. We just don't know what those numbers are. So those would be good numbers to know. And then if we go with a higher bond amount and we put it against debt service,
Right.
what does that do to our
It
20?
decreases your levy. It decreases the amount that you have to levy against property tax.
Right, so instead of 10%, it's down.
It could potentially be, yes, but we have to see where that's.
So what, the question we'll have tomorrow is,
There is no levy increase next year for this bond. There is no levy increase next year for this bond, because they'll have special assessments that will pay for the debt. So for this bond, there is no levy increase. The only levy increase in there for this debt that's being issued this year will be in 23, I'm gonna ask for an increase in the transfer to the equipment replacement plan for that debt, for that equipment debt, and that's a $30,000 increase. So that'll be the only part that's in your 23 budget for this specific debt. Right now,
so what's the 10% in 23 then?
oh, I'm sorry, you're right. It's 22 that I don't have any money in for
Yeah.
that, yeah. It's
Yeah.
in 23 that we do have the bond issue.
And so the question is, if we reduce the bond take up front,
Right.
or take the excess and put it against the debt levy?
Right, and we could take it,
Debt
and put it
service.
against the debt service levy, and you wouldn't have to you wouldn't have to increase your debt as much in 23.
So how do we know what those numbers are?
And it's not until the project is done.
Okay.
And that, you won't get your final building until 2023, or 2022. Or sometime in 22.
December 24th.
Right.
Mr. Mayor? Councilmember Greenberg,
Are we about done?
we are,
So let's, recap, we're gonna be asking 10,000 out of public works, 10,000 out of park, and 20,000 out of park. We're gonna ask Dave to come up with 20 and public works to come up with 10 and 10,000 out of park. We'll see where that goes.
It's gonna be a skinny pickleball court.
Just what you were afraid of.
that's a capital.
That's capital, different bucket.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if there's nothing else, I move to adjourn.
I second.
We are adjourned.